Okay, hopefully you can see and hear us now. Sorry about that. There was some tech issues. I'm very, very new to adding all of this extra stuff into my games, so forgive me. But we are going to get underway with episode 12 of our Momentum campaign. This is run using Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. It is set in a crazy world of dead god giants and æther-powered magitech. This is going to be, like I said, session 12, titled Bad Company of our campaign called Whispers and Fragments. This game has been fantastic so far. I cannot wait to get back to the story of these 5 troubled individuals. The characters, not necessarily players. I'm going to pass it over to the players so that they can do their introductions, plug anything that they would like, and then we can finally get this ball rolling. So first up, let's go with Jake.
Hey everybody, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and that's where you can find me. Especially you can tune in on Thursday nights to see Jeremy playing in a game that I run. Two Wednesdays a month you can see Jeff and Lloyd on the channel in a game run by Dice on Ice, and every Friday night you can see Alan running his Curse of Strahd game over there, and I'm playing Katja Kybrek, a fiery, impetuous teenage dwarf.
Absolutely. Dawnbringers is one of those games that I look forward to every single week. It's not only are the players just a lot of fun to play with, and the antics that we kind of get up to on screen are fun, but I also just really enjoy that group of people in the story that we're getting the chance to play through, the characters. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that. It's been a little bit of a break since I've played. So, all right. Next up, we have Austin.
I'm Austin. I'll be playing the Bonekin Monk Bastard. Not a lot to say as always, because I am the one channelless person who only runs games at home, not having to deal with any of this streaming nonsense. And I'm all the luckier for it. But I can't wait to get into this one. This is my one foray into streaming nonsense every month, and it's always worth it.
We welcome your nonsense here, Austin. All right, next up we have Alan.
Hello, everybody. I am Alan. You can find me on the social medias at CFT RPG and Fridays over on Mini Terrain Domain running Curse of Strahd. Excited to be here, and I am playing Haroon, the Elven Paladin. And I'm just really looking forward to rolling some dice tonight. Or even if we don't, because we usually don't. But either way, we have a good time.
I think there's going to be some dice rolling tonight. I'm pretty sure. All right. Next up, we have Lloyd.
Hello. It's me, your pal Lloyd. I don't know where that came from. I run the channel YarlDM on YouTube, and I recently released a book called Iscot where you can play Viking things. It's on DriveThruRPG. If you want to look at that, I'm very excited to race magical cars.
I think we're rubbing off on Lloyd, guys. All right. Last but certainly not least, my brother from another mother, Jeff.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Jeff, and I can say this now with more officialness from the YouTube channel Tabletop Terrors, which we will be redoing very soon. The famous relaunch spectacular that they've done like 7 times now with 100% more me involved. But that first video is going to be dropping on Sunday, so it should be pretty cool. So check that out if you're so inclined. But yeah, I am also playing in this game, which is going to be awesome. I'm playing Darian, the human smuggler turned reformed person trying to be better. And we'll see how much better he is now that we're going to be racing some cars. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Fantastic. All right. yes, and congratulations very much to both you, Lloyd and Jeff, on those accomplishments. I'm very, very proud and happy of both of you. There is going to be foul language in this game. More than likely, there will be mature subject matter as well, if that's the kind of thing that bothers you. If you're a kid, get the hell out of here. Don't watch this. But if you're not a kid and you like foul language and mature subject matter, well then welcome. You're in the right place. So, yeah. Oh, one last thing that I wanted to touch on. Whenever we do get to the part of this session that is going to be the racing, you're going to see a diagram that was put together by my very good friend, Karen Davies. So thank you very much for doing that, Karen. It took one of the spinning plates out of my control for a little while, and I think it's going to be excellent. It looks fantastic. So, gracias. Okay, do any of you have any questions before we get started? No. Okay. Then let's do this. Death is a fear that carves so deeply, it can drive us to things we would never do otherwise. It is primal, instinctual, woven into the fabric of our being. When encountering the finality of oneself, even our own bodies begin to rebel. Our hearts pound, our skin sweats, our blood runs cold, and our minds race. Yet, the seduction of danger brings us to that very precipice of mortality by choice. The intoxicating thrill of each close call is mixed with a sobering reminder of what it means to truly be alive. It is the siren's call of these narrow escapes that brings us back time and again. Souvenirs of our own daring. Adventure is how we mock the inevitability of death. The five of you find yourselves in the dreaming city, Arinivat, a sprawling metropolis set into one of the Ascended Isles, these floating rock homes of the elves. Sorry about the dogs. These sky elves, the Dryandil. Irashara itself is a spectacle of magic, illusion, particularly. Businesses hawk their wares using them, trying to draw you into their shops. There is rampant ether usage here, not only for the typical religious rites of the Sky Elves, but for pleasure, for avarice, for racing, of all things. You've come here chasing a group of individuals who you have found out to be a named group called the Throes of Sunset. Many of these members have gone through a vile ritual called Ebison, wherein Colossiah bone has been grafted to their bodies. You just took in a strange spectacle at a place called the O&B. One part dojo, one part opera house. This elaborate show of talent, both with steel and magic, played out before you in a ballad. Afterwards, a few of you met one of the stars of the show backstage and learned that though she's retiring from the stage, she has taken up illegal street racing. It just so happens that these Throes of Sunset members, no small amount of them happen to be dwarves who also engage in illegal street racing. So, as we pick up with the five of you kind of meeting in the rented apartment house that you've taken out here in Arinivat, and you're making plans for what the next step is, with a dinner invitation looming overhead, what is that conversation looking like? Very quiet, apparently. Not a lot of conversation going on.
Bastrad is thinking a lot about Vidaris and how sad he'll be not to have her travel along with them, but how happy he is that she has found a safe place where she might be able to learn things and to protect herself. And so he's sort of focused on that, and he'll kind of turn to Ingvarad. Do you think she'll be all right without us to guide her?
I think that she's a lot more capable than we give her credit for.
I can't doubt you on that.
And I think that this is a safe place where she is. It's going to be a better life than we're going to have on the road, than we had at the temple.
He'll just nod quietly and turn back to his, just back to focusing a little more quietly, thinking about it.
We could have avoided so much hardship if we'd not been there, not had to do all these things. Maybe she'll get to avoid that. And we'll come back here every chance we get.
Yes, I spent so long away from her that leaving her here again, I understand that it's the best course, but part of it just doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't feel right to me either, but sometimes rationally it can be the better idea, even if it doesn't feel that way.
Must be a new day, because I can't remember the last time that I thought through something to figure out what the best choice would be. Been so used to going with my gut.
We'll see how it goes. The important thing is that she'll be safe here. And she'll learn a lot of amazing things and have a life of luxury, it looks like. And she grew up in hardship, and so maybe she won't fall to degeneracy with her newfound wealth and closeness to actors.
He'll smile broadly and say, "You weren't with us when we were shopping. I don't think she'll be spending her money on anything debaucherous. She's got plenty to spend it on."
Well, that's good.
Somewhere in the corner of the apartment, I've pulled, probably noisily, I've grabbed an end table and have dragged it over by the window, and I'm kneeling in front of this table, and I've got this old pair of leather gloves that I had, and I've got a dagger, and I'm just like rocking this dagger across these gloves on the fingers, cutting the tips off the fingers on all the gloves, because I saw some of these racers and they all had fingerless gloves, and it's crude, and I'm marking the crap out of this table, but I don't care. I want to look cool. I want to fit in with these racers, so I'm just sitting in there, just it's like tongue is out of the mouth, just butchering these gloves to get the fingertips off.
Kat, yeah, you're breaking so many things. You're just breaking just so many things. You don't have to break them all. She'll say, and like put a hand on her shoulder, and like take like a spare pair of like gauntlets that she has, and we'll like begin like moving bits here and there and like taking away like the first two knuckles of the gauntlet, so that you can have, instead of ruining all of these things that we might need down the road, provide you with a pair of like fingerless gauntlets.
I would immediately look at them and just kind of holding this limp glove with like the thumb and two fingers cut off of it, and they're all different lengths, jagged, probably one's half hanging on. Look at the gauntlet, look at the glove, just toss the glove over my shoulder, take the gauntlets and just thank you. Start pulling them on and lacing them, and these are this is going to be awesome.
You will look very cool, she'll say, and then she'll like go over and pick up all the scraps of gloves and things, and like not make a big deal about it and just go clean up.
Oh yeah, Katya does not notice you do that at all.
Feeling the right way is surprisingly important to mastering these sorts of things. Darian will butt in. It's strange how much the feeling of the right aesthetic can put us in mindsets that we might not normally have. Kind of like tap on the gauntlets on your hand. These will make you think like one of them. It's because you feel like one of them. He'll say, not entirely sure that what he's saying is remotely accurate, but he's like saying it with authority anyways. It's because you feel like one of them.
And Bastrad will just chime in like, he's absolutely right, you know. I was much better at praying when I wore the robes.
I don't even know what to expect. And I drag that table with several dagger marks kind of notched in the top, drag it back over to like in front of a chair, bench or something. And as they're talking, I'm just like trying to imagine from what I saw, the limited view we had of these things on the street, trying to like I kind of sit on the edge of this chair, slouch down a bit, put my feet up on the table, and that's where I look lost. All of a sudden I'm like, I don't know. This is going to be something else. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to put my hands. I don't know what my feet are supposed to do, but
So
if those other dwarves can do it, I can do it.
So I don't know that Darian would have been able to pick up much mechanically from looking at this thing. Like that's so not his field of expertise. But from being near to the cart that the person was driving, could I at least like try to, as in much detail as I can, give Katya like a rundown of like just the like aesthetic and visual view of the car of like, well, you know, you sit in a chair that's like this and like it has a steering thing that's like that, just from like seeing it, or would the function of it be so different that he wouldn't be able to tell?
So, I think Darian is probably more used to seafaring vessels, but if you want, you can go ahead and make a roll. Let's see. We'll just call it a wisdom or intelligence. I'll let you choose. Roll, and you can use your sea vehicles proficiency, but roll it with disadvantage because of the difference.
Perfect. I think that sounds fair to me. I'm actually going to use a one of my inspiration points before I roll to make that with normal.
Okay.
Because I think that this will be useful information if we can get it. That is a 15 on the die, so with a wisdom of 0. But proficiency bonus for sailing, I do have a +3 proficiency bonus, so that'll be 18 actually.
Excellent. So yeah, maybe it's different now. Sorry, gang. It's different, but there's enough similarity to some of the controls, at least, that you're able to kind of figure it out with some trial and error between the two of you. So, Katya, while you're not going to be considered proficient with this vehicle, unless you have proficiency in land vehicles.
I'm double checking my proficiencies now, and no.
Okay. So you won't count as being proficient with it, unless a certain situation comes up where it just really makes a lot of sense that you'd be able to eke your way through it. But,
yeah, I've got proficiencies with Tinker's tools, so unless I have to do like a Anakin pod racer on the fly repair, I might just be relying on just good old luck.
Excellent. Nothing
Now
wrong
that's ether racing.
But I'm absolutely wrapped. This is one of those rare moments where Katya is not talking, and is just listening intently to everything Darian's saying, relying on as far as I know, you're an expert in these things.
Yeah, his language would probably be very far from that of like it's just like, and I think that there's this, if you like pull this like and jiggle it like that, then maybe it'll do, like, it's very like wishy-washy language, so he doesn't like hang himself too much on your victory. Like, he wants to like make you better, but he doesn't want to take the blame for when you lose. So he's like specifically being like, I'm pretty sure this might do that, but he'll like go through as much as he can manage to figure out based off of what he's just seen and his experience with other vehicles, to try to like get some sort of thing of like, well, I think this is the pedal that you push to make it do this, and you should be able to turn it like this, and you have to make sure that you know, whatever. And some like universal vehicle things, like, you know, if you're gonna make a crazy turn, you should like make sure that you slow down into it and things like that, in case you've never like driven anything before, which there's a good chance you probably haven't. And he'll just go as much as he can into all these different little things.
And occasionally I'm trying to relate it to something I know. Like, the only mechanical thing would be the elevator system that goes down to hell when we head down to do mining, which of course is nothing like this other than it's made of metal. But that's the closest comparison she can make.
Bastrad will come over to Katya and just kind of kneel down next to her and look her just dead in the eye and say, you're going to be going up against a bunch of pampered rich kids who've never faced anything. How many of them do you think have dangled over the edge of the world and gone into hell itself to pull blood and stone from the middle of the world?
Well,
you've got this.
If they're dwarfs, there's a good chance all of them, but if they've been sitting here in the city all cushy and the luxury of racing these things around, they don't have the recent experience that I have.
Would you rather ride one of these vehicles at 1,000 miles an hour down the street or face another carnage hound? They're soft. You've got this.
On the other hand, they've driven these things before. So let's be confident, but cautious. You'll probably die if you crash it.
Maybe. I like to think I've got an edge that they don't have. And only if you're looking closely, you might notice that little bit, almost like a storm brewing in the horizon. There's just the hints of the rolling shadow in her eyes, and maybe just little wisps of shadow that sort of almost like when she exhales, like seeing somebody's breath. Just for a moment, there's an exhalation of shadow and a faint hint of brimstone.
Yeah, Bastard is
Is
basically
that
still
legal to use in the race? Darian and Jeff will both ask simultaneously.
Bastard will just smile a little bit and then stand back up and not say anything.
You're saying this of vehicles that are powered by ether? I think I'll be all right.
If it is legal, then you'll have to be careful too, because the other people might have their own powers that they can use, which would be even more dangerous somehow.
God.
But we'll see if there's some way we can help. If there's anything I can do, I'll find a way to do it.
In the absence of any further tutelage, I think Kachi spends the rest of the time pacing and occasionally stopping at the window to look out and just see if there's any more of these ether carriages on the street, just to kind of catch a glimpse of one, see how they're moving, and then pacing back and forth. Just that. It's got all this energy and just wants to release it.
You've paced back and forth to the window probably 10, 12 times at this point and haven't seen any sign of your quarry. And you're like halfway through a pace away when you hear that kind of telltale like whining of their metallic blades like carving their way down the stone streets. That kind of and the engine noise as the ether kind of burns, and you kind of rush back over to the window and you catch just kind of this glowing blur, kind of in the street over, kind of as it passes between several buildings. Okay. So, the dinner that you were invited to, Katya, by an older dwarven woman, takes place before this race. Goodness, dog. He always sounds like somebody's murdering him for some stupid reason.
Carnage hounds!
Yeah, right. Help! Okay, so you guys will have to remind me who all is going to the dinner with Katya.
Gulp.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought it was just Darian and Katya that got the invite. Like, he only checked about Darian.
Okay.
I think.
So just Darian and Katya?
Yeah, I'll go.
Excellent. Okay. So before we get into that, is there anything that the other three of you are getting up to kind of while that's happening in the background?
Do we have the car?
Yeah, because we just went through all the describing kind of what it looks like and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to say that we have it.
Okay, then I'm guessing Red would spend some time like fixing it. I know she doesn't know what a car is, but she like has a magical affinity, like a divine affinity with machines and objects and stuff. So I think what she'll do is, like, rather than trying to mess with any of the delicate sort of stuff she doesn't understand, is like, smooth out some of the shapes so that like an impact would glance rather than like in like little things like that. I'll just spend my time doing that. And basically, if it's possible, I'll use my once per long rest, give a +1 to a thing. Usually it's armor or a weapon, but if there's a way that I can like give a +1 to its AC or like a skill check that's made with the thing or whatever, that would be pretty cool.
Hell yeah. Okay. So let's get a roll. So since this is kind of
Okay.
unusual,
Yes.
does that have a thing that it usually queues off of, or is it just you just spend the time and?
It's straight up like my cleric feature for being a forge cleric.
Okay.
So my guess would be like wisdom or like religion
sure.
is what she uses. But like if you want intelligence or something instead to like, I don't really mind.
No. I think.
Is there any
because
way
this
that
is-
I could assist her with that? I'm good with general like bone sculpting and stoneworking.
Hell yes, absolutely. Okay, so let's do a religion check, because this is kind of like, it's not your innate knowledge.
Yeah.
Kind of like, being a conduit. So let's do a religion roll, and because Bostrad is helping, you can have advantage on it.
Excellent. That's a 13 and a 17 plus. Oh, I'm not good at religion. So 18.
That's pretty damn good.
Religion
Okay.
is not a wisdom skill.
Oh, that's right. It's so stupid that they have it. I mean, I get it, but anyways. So
You could just have it be wisdom and religion.
yeah,
if you
that's
wanted
also
to.
true.
Like, you don't have to, but
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I
let's do
guess.
that. I like that. So
That will make it a 23
excellent. Okay,
using wisdom instead.
nice. Okay,
21, sorry.
that's still fantastic. So you don't yourself know exactly what you're doing, but you worship Akun, the creator, right? Which is perfect.
Yep.
Through her guidance, as well as Bostrad kind of lending a hand here and there, we go this montage of you guys like reshaping parts of this, speaking to one another in Bonekin, kind of talking through how to do all of this kind of stuff. By the end of it, you guys are like greasy and nasty looking, and that kind of stuff. You kind of give the high five at the very end of it. It's a nice little montage. Cool. What is Haroon up to?
So I'm just thinking, so ideally, we're only doing this in order to try to make our way into this dwarven cult, right? As far as like getting an in. And although we have a driver, I have a feeling that we're going to need some I mean, we're not hurting on funds, but we're going to need some financial backing in order to actually get into this race. Did we gave Calp's ring back, right? So we don't have that anymore.
Yes, I believe that's true.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, so I don't think we'll have an issue with funding to get in the race.
We have so much money.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
You guys still
We
have
have,
like
like-
over 20,000, I think.
yeah.
yeah.
So you're definitely not hurting.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing in particular that I would be doing in order to prepare for this. So, there's not much I can offer in help wise.
Sure. Okay. So you kind of busy yourself finding little odds and ends that you can try to do to kill time. You might even pay whatever entrance fee that you have to pay in order to actually enter the race. The carriage itself was lent to you by Jazz Bosto, the human performer from the theater. It's an older one of hers that she is letting you use for this particular race. Okay. So, Katya and Darian. Is there anything that you're doing before you head to this dinner?
No, I mean, I don't think Katya would even have the foresight to do anything other than wear her new threads. She wouldn't try to look any different or better and just be herself. If just the two of us go, are they going to think that we're like a couple? She asks Darian.
They already met us, and it was just us then, and something tells me we didn't give those vibes off. I wouldn't imagine that we would.
I mean, you're not a dwarf, otherwise they might think you're my father. And then she kind of elbows you, like making a deliberate joke.
Yeah, Darian will laugh. And you're also a fair bit younger than me, as far as I know. Though that's hard to tell with you dwarves. He'll like return the vibe.
Yeah, I would imagine that in actual years, Katya's probably older than Darian.
It's probably true. She's the equivalent of a 19-year-old human, so I don't know what that is in Dwarven.
I don't have my conversion chart in front of me, so it's old. Okay.
I just hope they don't have any weird food.
Darian's been here before, so how weird is the food here? I mean, I'm sure to a dwarf it's gonna be weird no matter what.
Yeah, so
I imagine it's interesting.
yeah, elven food is typically, I mean, really light. It's, a lot of vegetables and fruits, things of that nature. There's not a lot of meat, and it's typically kind of, again, just light food, salads and things of that nature, as opposed to real heavy meals. Katya, I would imagine, outside of dwarven lands, you would find most food to be very bland. The dwarves have very heavily spiced food.
We actually touched on the food. Katya made a stew in one of the first gatherings. It was a very traditional dwarven dish, very heavy with root vegetables, meat, very heavy sauce, heavily spiced. She's used to that kind of heavier, even going into the not necessarily flavorful, but into the bitters and things like that. So we'll see how her palate handles it. It's going to be like a Russian going to California.
Yeah. I imagine Darian will just kind of return with like a. Honestly, you probably won't even notice it. By your palate, if what you eat normally is anything like what you fed to us last time, you probably won't even taste it.
Well, let's find out.
Okay. So you arrive at this house. Your hostess's name is Navarid Skovoroda the Ninth. Dwarves a lot of times will name themselves after their parents, so they have this very long line of succession where they simply just number themselves after a while. Navarid is married, and her husband is named Bakazan the Fifth. As you arrive at the Skovoroda house, you kind of double check that the address is right, the description of the house matches, and you knock on the door. You hear a voice kind of muffled from inside. Just a moment. And you hear footfalls. Then the door opens, and Katya, you are greeted not with blandness. Pouring out from this dwarven home is the aromas of home. You smell not only succulent meats that have been roasted in a fire, you can taste the the brimstone that they actually cook with as a spice on your tongue, just in the air alone. And standing in the doorway is the woman that you met earlier in the day. She has a broad, smiling face and is kind of darker of skin tone. She smiles, her hair kind of pulled back. She says, "Oh, welcome. Come in, please."
Oh, it smells amazing in here.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you. I hope you brought your appetites. And she kind of ushers you and Darian through the door.
I imagine Darian will have to like stifle a cough from like how strong the smell is. He's used to the normal food here, but he is not used to Dwarven food remotely. And I imagine even just the smell of it's like very overwhelming to somebody who's not used to those sorts of spices. And we'll have to do one of those like and like try to like hide it as if it was like it was just cold outside and I'm just have a little bit of a cough, but like in reality it's just like trying to be polite.
Yeah, I imagine it's almost like us Westerners like walking into like an Indian food restaurant where like the smell of curry is just like a brick wall when like you walk in. You're just like, whoa, because you're not used to it in everyday life typically. And it's definitely, you eat a lot of seafood and a lot of salted food as a human typically, and you probably haven't tasted some dwarven fare before. But even still, like the air is tinged with this stuff enough that like your eyes might even like tear up a little bit.
His only experience with Dwarven food is the thing that Katya made in the prior session. So this will be quite the adventure.
So she ushers you inside and shows you to like a comfortable sitting space. You can see that kind of just through an open doorway that there's a table that's been set. There's 5 places that have been kind of set at the table with dishes and eatery. And she kind of motions you towards the sitting room. She says, "Please just find a place to sit. I will be done momentarily."
Thank you so much. And Darian, you might notice that Katya, upon entering this place and just with this familiarity, there's a bit of a lightness to her now. So the tension in her shoulder seems to have dropped a little bit. Seems put at ease here. Oh, I would just find a nice comfortable seat and look at Darian. This is if even half of what I smell is right, we are in for a feast.
Darian will give that like hesitant half smile of like I'm glad you're happy, but oh god, what am I doing here type of feeling.
Just at the very least, taste a little bit of everything. If you at least taste it, there will be no insult.
Yeah, he'll kind of just give a nod with a bit of determination, kind of steeling himself of like, okay, I need to just make it through like a little bit of something and I'll be okay. But he just genuinely also does seem like intrigued and like interested to like share in this part of your culture that like he hasn't experienced before. So that's like a hesitant curiosity.
Well, I think it's just on a very small scale. It's kind of like a turning of the tables where all of a sudden Koch is very aware of the fact that her culture is on display here and she's representing her culture in a place that it's pretty minimal and to somebody that she's close to and wants to share that with. So she's just sort of explaining a few things to you maybe about what to expect and and little things like that about tasting things. It's nowhere near like expert tutorial, but just like when you have a friend come over to your house and you explain to them, this is kind of how we do things here. Don't be weird about it, and everything will be okay.
So you kind of sit for just a moment or so, kind of basking in the smells of this strong spice, this roasted meats, and you can hear Navarid kind of working in the kitchen. She's kind of humming to herself. Kata, you might even recognize it. It sounds like an old kind of dwarven song that's just kind of sung as a kind of a common tune whenever somebody's happy and pleased. And after just a moment, another dwarf comes and joins you. This one, he's much older than the female dwarf that you had just met. And he comes in and kind of looks at both of you. His eyes kind of study Darian for a long moment, and then he crosses to you, Katya, and he extends this block of a calloused hand towards you. It is nice to meet you.
As soon as he entered the room, Katya stood and not quite at attention, but stood a little still, waiting for him to approach, as is custom. And waits for him to offer his hand, and as he does, she takes it in her own, not nearly as calloused, but proudly calloused hands. It is an honor to meet you.
I am Bakazan the Fifth of the Skovoroda clan. What clan are you from?
I am Katya the First of the Kybrick clan.
It's not a clan I have heard of, but there are many of us. What has brought you to this elven place? He kind of looks around, almost, not quite disgust, but not nearly as comfortable as his wife seems to be.
Curiosity and exploration, as is our way.
You can find plenty of that here in the Dreaming City. That and more that you do not wish to find, if you are not careful.
I am learning that already.
And you, human, what clan do you hail from?
Darian will do that thing like when you're like taken by a friend to a place that like has a lot of like certain like traditions and like events that you don't know, and you have to try to like quickly like glance over and follow along. So when he sees like Katya like stand up, he'll like oh god, yeah, and then like stand up as well, and then like shake the dwarf's hand if he'll offer to him as well. And he'll just nod. My name is Darian. We don't really do the clan thing.
Oh, yes, of course. Forgive me. You have a good handshake. Humans do most of the time. So, it smells like supper is almost ready. We should sit. Come. The three of you kind of enter the dining room, and he takes what is obviously a chair that he has sat in many times before, and then Navarid calls from the kitchen that the food is ready, and he rises back up from the chair and he says, "Oh, please, sit. I will get you something to drink. How would you like some mulled wine? He kind of looks at you, Katya.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
And you, Darian, do you prefer wine or mead? Or ale?
Wine is fine, thank you.
Good. He kind of pushes himself up from the table and leaves. And over the next several minutes, they bring out a few dishes. There's this leg of a mutton-type creature, somewhat goat, somewhat sheep, something that climbs a lot of the ascended aisles. And it's been kind of roasted and braised in this kind of thick gravy that is very, very spicy. And it's got several different sides, like root vegetables, like we talked about earlier. Something almost like roasted potatoes. And again, everything seems to kind of have the kick that brimstone brings to a dish. You can see, as you're kind of starting to eat, that there is this fifth setting at the table that has remained empty this entire time. At some point, Navarid goes over to begin kind of clearing the dishes from this setting, and you see Bakazan kind of hold his hand up and put it on top of her forearm, stopping her. Please leave it. He will return. Both of you can clearly see on Navarid's face that she has like a pity look on her face for her husband. And then she leaves the dishes and sits back down and continues to eat.
Is this a dwarven custom that I would recognize? Or is this something else?
No, I don't think this is a specifically dwarven custom. This is unusual behavior.
I would just give a sidelong glance at Darian, like, I have no idea what's going on here. I don't say that, just that kind of, that look, that subtle shrug.
Yeah, Darian's face would go like slightly somber, noticing the spot, and just kind of look down away from like the empty chair, like just down to the table of food, and just kind of like slowly nod his head. He won't say anything openly. He doesn't want to like pry too much, but he's lost people, sometimes temporarily, sometimes permanently, a lot, and he'll kind of feel for what he thinks is not a custom, but just a grieving and hopeful family that's looking for somebody who may or may not ever be back in that chair. And he'll just kind of like give a nod to Katya of like, uh-oh.
The rest of the dinner is perfectly cordial. They're very kind people. They seem to genuinely be interested in the fact that there's another dwarf in the city, especially one that they've never met before, and one that isn't involved in the illegal street races. That is something that they seem to have a little bit of a burr in their saddle, if you will, about.
Koch is usually not pretty quick to pick up on these kind of things. But I think one thing she is good at, particularly from dealing with Ingvarad for so long, is recognizing when an elder holds something in disdain that she herself likes, that she knows to steer clear of it. And so I think she would kind of, as they get to talking about, where she comes from, she would go into just telling some of her experience with delving into the down under. And I mean, to dwarves, they're probably pretty mundane stories, but Katya has a penchant for probably unintentional hyperbole, and really exaggerating some of her exploits, and the things that should be considered extravagant, such as seeing a fellow dwarf cut in two by another demon, and continuing on with her shift. Those are the mundane things that she sort of passes over. Um, she just kind of shares in some of her experience from where she comes from. And unless directly asked or it comes up, she steers clear of the street racing topic.
And this individual, the father figure, he has kind of stories of his own of delving into the down under, and is able to appreciate most of what you can say about the situation, Katya. He's not the type to constantly one up one of your stories, but you can tell that he recognizes what you're talking about, and just from the comments and the few story bits that he does share, you can tell that it's something that he did for a while.
I feel like this is one of those things that Darian would probably quickly be almost as if they're talking another language. It's a lot of familiarity, but there's a lot of things. If you've ever been around drawing from my own experience, when a couple of military veterans get together, they slip into that parlance and they just start talking shop. They start using shorthand. They start referencing things, maybe not even talking complete sentences because they already know what the other one's going to say. So there's probably some of that shorthand going on. And maybe every once in a while, Katya catches and just sort of leans over to Darian and says, "No, that's what we call the winches, where we bring the ores up, or that's what we call the process of smelting."
Yeah, and one of the things that you are hearing loud and clear, Darian, is some fairly horrific descriptions of the kinds of things that happen in the Down Under. It's apparently a pretty terrifying place just by the sound of it, if what they're saying is to be believed.
So this is partially my own memory failing me. Has Katya ever told us, at least Darian specifically, about her past before? I don't remember how much she's even ever said of that before. And how new this would be to Darian.
It's a great question.
I'm trying to think. I feel like, honestly, this might be the first time Darian's hearing in depth. I mean, previously, you may have heard allusions to, and I think when the topic came up, when Ingvarad and Katya got into a pretty heated argument after that one battle, where Katya maybe accidentally almost killed everybody, where she talked a little bit about what she found in relation to her power. But yeah, this would probably be the first time you're hearing in detail about her actual background.
Yeah, I imagine there's that, to kind of steal your analogy there, like when you find out that that perfectly normal, well-mannered person you're talking to was like a Navy SEAL who's done like crazy, like absurd, like dangerous combat missions. And you're like, what? And they start telling all these like crazy, crazy stories of just like, oh, this like nice young Dwarven girl is like telling stories about like fighting demons and her friends being cast into the pits of hell. And like, and he's just like, whoa, like it's difficult to absorb, I imagine, like the full gravity especially since you're talking about it so mundanely and so calmly. Like, wait, this person who I've like given credit, like not too much credit for in terms of like world experience and maturity, has like actually been through some serious shit. And there's a bit of a self reckoning there, I imagine, for Darian.
I wouldn't even hazard to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, but I kind of see it as people that live in parts of the world where there's, we live in first world countries where we're pretty privileged and we take a lot for granted, and people that live in third world countries that face a lot of atrocities on a daily basis, it's the norm for them. And in a certain sense, I think it's akin to that the things Katya never would have thought to brag about it to anybody, because that's just what her life was. That's what she's known. The only thing worth bragging about in her mind is, and then she learned to kind of keep it quiet too, eventually, was, the special abilities that have been bestowed upon her, which she does not bring up at all in this conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair analogy. So yeah, the conversation kind of continues on like this for most of the evening. It's, you know, it's a big meal. You can tell that Navarid and Bakazan certainly kind of tried to go out of their way to host you, and they seem very, very grateful for the company. And every once in a while, you can see either one of them kind of glancing over towards the empty spot, or maybe even towards the front door. But neither one of them says another word about it.
At some point during the conversation, as a lull kind of happens, he won't want to like interrupt Katya's moment of getting to like reconcile with old parts of her culture, but kind of as that starts to wind, Darian will just look over to these people and say, I don't mean to intrude, nor do I mean to accuse. Have either of you ever heard of a group called the Throes of Sunset? Apparently, they have set in this area.
You might as well have just taken your plate off the table and dropped it onto the floor. The room goes cold. And they both kind of look down into their laps. And
Darian will immediately like glance at, like dart like his eyes over to Katya to be like, what did I do? Expecting that he's like broken some ancient custom.
After a moment, there's probably like this very uncomfortable, pregnant pause. Bakazan says, "They are a menace to this city, to this whole world. Our son." And he gestures towards the empty spot. Our son has decided to turn his back on the ways of our people, on his family and his clan. He's taken up with this group, this menace. And his wife, Navarid, then kind of chimes in and says, "Those illegal street racers, they are a part of it. I just know that he's going to..." And she kind of starts to get visibly distraught and choked up. And Bakazan kind of turns to you. "Forgive us. It is not a subject that we that we handle with much grace, I am afraid.
No, forgive me. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
He did not mean any insult by bringing this up. We ask only because, well, my friends and I, we also see this cult as a bad thing. And we're trying to find out about it so we can see what we can do to stop it.
The two of you are going to try to take down the Throes of Sunset?
There's
foolish.
more than just us.
We have other friends.
I see.
We may not look like much, but we're pretty capable. And our friends even more so.
If you traveled here during the long night, then yes, I believe you are capable. You should be careful. This cult, its members, they are persuasive, powerful, dangerous.
Forgive me for asking, because I know this is painful for you, but how did your son get involved?
The way that all children get involved in things that they should not, against the advice of their parents. They do not look to listen. They believe they know better. But they cannot be told to avoid the pitfalls of life. So they head into them face first.
How long has it been since you've talked to him? I think as she asked that, there's kind of a catch in her voice, because while he was saying this, he's might as well be speaking to her with Ingvarad's words. She feels this all too real, feeling of sitting in the front of the church and the preachers talking right to her, kind of thing. But she's trying to learn more.
At this point, Bakazan himself kind of chokes up. Kind of chokes on his own words. He can't seem to form them. So it's Navareed who actually speaks up, and she says, "It has been almost 18 months now. We do not even know if he is..." She kind of stops herself. If he's still alive or not.
I know this conversation is getting difficult. We didn't mean for it to be like this when we got here. But if you don't mind, since we're already here, this son of yours, if you can, and it's okay if you don't want to, his name, what he looks like, a mannerism that he has, a piece of memorabilia that he wears that might identify him. Anything, if we're going to take these people on and we see them, I want to make sure that we find a way to bring them back to you.
They exchange a look with one another. The kind of look that is almost like the embers of a fire, just barely still there. This hope that's buried in the coals of their desperation. They just seem to barely believe that it's possible. And they look to you after this exchange. And Bakazan, finding his voice once more, speaks up and he says, almost proudly, he's Bakazan the Sixth of Clan Skoloroda. But he goes by Kazan. He's forsaken his name. He is very good with those machines. He knows his way around and how to work with them. It's just like his mother. He has a gift for artifice. But he got my temper, I am afraid. Forgives me, I feel tired.
I would stand up and I would place my hand on his thick, calloused hand, both of mine, and I would use a dwarven term of familiarity, usually reserved for families, but there's a solemn promise in these simple words. We will do what we can to find Bakazan the Sixth, or at least learn what we can of him, grandfather. And she uses the term grandfather as this term of familiarity, not meaning necessarily a paternal, patriarchal figure, but just a familiar term.
He doesn't raise his eyes to meet your face. Instead, he brings his other hand over and kind of pats the top of your hands, as if to say thank you.
How will we know him when we see him?
I do not know the way he keeps himself. No, the way he looks, but he has dark hair, darker of skin, much like his mother. And like I said, he has an aptitude. I do not think you will miss him. Thank you. And he kind of turns and shuffles his way out of the room. Navareed will continue to make pleasant talk, but you can tell that she's distracted. And she definitely has her mind elsewhere. And it's pretty clear socially that she's trying to wrap up the engagement.
I don't think she would even have to go on for that long. Katya would be familiar with this and would just kind of give Darian a meaningful look. And thank you again so much for your hospitality. We are very honored by your kindness. And I hope that in honor of the Kybricks, that one day I can return the favor. There's a hint of recitation that this is something that she's been taught to say, but it doesn't take away from the meaning behind the words.
Though she is distracted, you can see that she is genuine in her returning of that thanks. It has been some time since we have had visitors who have brought happiness, conversation, good and bad, into the house. So thank you. It was lovely to meet both of you. And good luck.
Thank you, Darian will say. And I'll like open his mouth to like say something more, like a couple different times, as if he wants to like provide some additional comfort or promise, but like the words fail him. And he'll just kind of look over to Katya and just give that shrug of like, well, I guess we should leave, and start heading for the door.
Okay. You guys head to the door and you leave behind the house of Scovaroda. You head back across town to the apartment that the five of you let and meet back up with everyone. And you know you have a night's rest before the race is supposed to take place in the early hours of morning. So, is there anything that any of the five of you want to do before the race takes place? Any conversations between you, sharing of information, etc.?
Do we know yet specifically where the like what the track is, or like what the route is at all?
It doesn't seem like that kind of information is like readily available. Like there's no map that's been drawn or anything like that. It's been this kind of thing that you'll know it when you see it, and they seem to be trying to keep it somewhat under wraps.
Yeah.
But you've been told that there's going to be basically like markers laid out just before the race begins, so that way you'll know where you need to go.
So yeah, I'd like to, if I could, like spend a little time like kind of trying to see if I can like kind of get like based on where we've seen them before and what kind of roads they need. I just want to see if there's any way I can like try to get an idea of where they're going, where they might end up, so that I can try to see if there's some way I can, you know, work on interfering with the other people along the route.
Absolutely. Okay. And so part of what we're going to be doing with the race is that you guys are each going to be giving us where the particular leg of the race is kind of happening as we're going. So we'll say that, Bostrad, you have gone out and done those things, and then we'll just kind of retrofit them as we go. Cool. All right.
Have we figured out if it's cheating to use magic? Do we know?
It is not. You can use magic. Basically, the only, and again, it's not even a rule. It's just a don't try to kill people. Like, that's not the point of the race kind of thing. If it happens, it happens. That is a danger of racing, but that's not the point of the race kind of thing. But other than that,
Excellent.
It's kind of like whatever goes.
So then, with that information, I will be trying to protect Katya by casting Glyph of Warding on the car and like covering it with like a cloak. And when she removes it, it will cast Spirit Guardians, which will protect her. And if someone drives near her, then there'll be a sort of boom or whatever. But basically, like you can, I'm pretty sure, I'm not so great with spells, but it looks like you can cast a spell in advance and then you can like declare when it activates, and then it activates. And so she would have to like remove the covering from the glyph for it to activate during the race.
Okay.
So is this sort of like you're giving me a magical NOS button kind of thing?
I'm giving you a, oh crap, they're next to me, hit the button, and then like,
Or like the
boom.
James Bond spy button.
Yeah.
Yes,
With the
exactly.
rolling blades all around the car.
Yep.
All right.
That's it.
Cool.
They're all trying to murder me button.
It's a Mach 5, guys. It's a Mach 5.
It's meant for defense. She will insist over and over again. And she believes that Katya won't use it for like nefarious purposes, but also knows that it will protect her if things get like too hairy.
Perfect. Yeah, and we'll say that that's like part of what you did, like during your montage. Like as you were kind of reshaping things, you kind of worked some of that magic into the chassis of this carriage. Perfect.
I'd say in the morning, I'm going to recast Aid, and the three allies I choose is Katya, Darian, and Bastarad, who will increase their hit point maximum by 5 and gain and also increase their current hit points by 5 for the next 8 hours.
Excellent.
So, okay. So we get both temp and increase of max.
No, it's not temp. It is your hit point maximum goes up, and your current hit points go up by 5.
Oh, I got it. I think I still had it on my sheet from last time.
Yeah. It only lasts for 8 hours, so the next day I would recast it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine it's probably even somewhat part of like a morning ritual that you guys kind of go through, especially if you're expecting any kind of action for the day.
Right, I can cast it too to cover the rest of us. I'll just cover Katya as well, so she'll have it twice. I don't think there's anything about it stacking.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll stack or not.
Because it's not temporary hit points. Temporary hit points don't stack, but this just says increases the target's hit point maximum.
Yeah, then that's...
So I think potentially it does, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's an additional 5.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's not temp HP, it would stack.
Right.
That would prevent it.
Okay. 69 hit points. Katya likes that.
Won the game. Lost the game.
And then I would, in typical fashion, there's that in our cinematic fashion, in the early morning, Katya's like walking along this racer, running her hands along the lines of it, just spending some time with it, and with nobody else around, her eyes fill with that black storm clouds. They go completely black, and black smoke seems to pour from her very pores, emanate from her very pores, and settle over her body. And I'm using my Armor of Shadows to bump my AC up to a 14. That'll last for 8 hours.
I imagine there's this moment where like you can see most of your reflection kind of in the highly polished metal of the curved wheel on this carriage, and when you cast your spell, like part of your visage, your reflection in this metal just kind of almost disappears into darkness, and it's kind of just your face left there.
I imagine, just purely for the cinematic effect, where the reflection of my storm cloud filled eyes are, there's 2 pinpoints of reflected ether light that just sort of line up in that sort of matched look, and maybe give me a little bit of a shudder, but I'm ready.
As you stare into the pinpricks of ether light of your face, you can see the shadow of this armor kind of starting to creep in on the sides of your face, almost as if it's trying to pull you back into the darkness. And you steel your nerves, and you announce to the world that you are ready. This is where we are going to take our break. When we come back, we will hop into the race of these ether carriages. So thank you very, very much for anybody who is tuning in this evening, or if you are tuning in the future. Thank you for sticking with us through some of the technical issues that we were having at the beginning. Hopefully all of that is ironed out at this point. So yeah, stick around, and we'll be back in 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. We are back. Hello everyone, welcome back from our break. We are about to race some ether chariots. So once again, I want to thank Karen Davies very much for coming up with the little diagram that we're going to use here throughout the race. You guys will see it here in just a moment. Before we get to the starting gun sounding, I'm just going to kind of go over the way that the race is going to work. I'll kind of go over it briskly. If you need me to explain something better, please don't hesitate to ask. All right, so the finish line for this race is a set numerical value. In this case, it's going to be 150 points. Whichever racer crosses the finish line first, or the one with the most points once the finish line has been crossed, wins the race. Each round, each racer is given an allotment of points to spend on their speed, which is applied towards reaching the finish line, or their caution, which is going to be applied towards avoiding potential obstacles. For this race, each racer begins with an allotment of 20 points per round. There is a 50% chance every round that an obstacle may present itself. A die roll is going to determine what type, if any, obstacle is in play and what penalty will apply if it is not avoided. All obstacles will require 10 caution points to avoid. However, this number will be adjusted through skill checks. A skill check will be called for from each racer, determined by the obstacle, the location, situation of the round, etc. Each racer is then going to roll that skill, and the modifier is going to be determined based upon the result. It'll be done the same way as a character stat. So a 10 is a 0, 12 is 1, etc. The obstacle's rating is then going to be adjusted by that modifier, and the racer's allotted caution points for the round will be applied. If the obstacle is reduced to a 0 rating, then you successfully avoided it for the round. Okay? If you roll a 20 on your skill check, you may add 10 additional points towards your speed for that round. You can take an action, and only an action, in addition to the rolls for racing for that round. However, unless you spend at least 10 points towards caution for that round, any rolls for that action will be made at disadvantage. You're traveling at such high speeds, it would just be very dangerous to try to do whatever you're doing. So, now that that's all laid out, does anybody have any questions about how it's going to work? Anything you want me to explain?
Yeah, can you explain that again? No,
Sure,
I'm just kidding.
No.
I got the gist of it, and I'm sure you'll keep everything on track as we're going.
Perfect. Yeah, like I said, we play tested this just a little bit. I'm hoping that this is going to work out. It was a lot of fun when we tried with just 2 people. So, I have it set up so that there are 5 racers, including Katya. So, is there anybody who is wanting to roleplay and spend points and all that kind of stuff for any one of the other NPC racers? Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay. Austin, Ellen, you guys? Yeah or nay?
Yeah, I'll get in on this.
Yeah? Ellen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so, post the rules. Yeah. Let me see if I can find the file and pull it up, and I'll copy paste it over into the doc here, the chat rather. But first,
All right, which one of you nerf herders is going to be Sebulba?
Poodle.
All right, it's Lloyd.
okay. So this is the beautiful graphic that has been put together, and hopefully I'm going to be able to
I like
use
it.
it properly.
Looks great.
I was going to capture everybody's camera a second time, but as you can see, I didn't. So, sorry. All right. So, you can feel free to name your dwarves if you wish. One of them, other than Katya, does actually have a name. The one that is right next to Katya. He is introduced to you as Kazan. This dude with the kind of sweet mustache. Who wants to be Kazan? Any takers? Alan? Okay.
I see Alan raising his hand.
Okay. Let's see. There's got to be a way that I can... Hold on, I'm shifting my screens around here. You know, I never in my life would have said to myself, 2 monitors is not enough. But
I've got 3 right now, and I'm not sure it's enough.
You're right. Where's it? Oh, here it is. Okay. I'm going to move this up here. Perfect. All right. So, you all gather these ether carriages to the appointed starting line. This kind of back alley warehouse district that's not far from the docks, not far from your ship. It's a little bit out of the way. You have the chance to actually gather in a large crowd and shit talk with each other. These dwarves, not all of them are dwarves, first of all. Some of them are human, some of them are elven. There aren't any bonekin that you see. But they're all kind of rough and tumble sorts. The dwarves almost universally have some form of ebison. And this is done in a like decorative fashion, but as if trying to be intimidating. You know, it's done in ridges on their foreheads and their cheekbones. You know, lots of crowns of spikes, you know, on their forearms, things of that nature. And each one of these definitely kind of comes to the race with, excuse me, a persona, if you will, almost like watching professional wrestling. You've all got, you know, clever names and costumes that go along with it, and there's a big show and a big to-do about it. Kata, you prepare yourself. You climb behind the seat. Jazz Bosto comes over to you, and she says, "So, you nervous?"
I don't normally admit this, but yes, a little bit.
That's not a bad thing. Your nerves can keep you out of trouble if you're listening to them. Well, I approve of the modifications made to the ride, but try to be careful with her if you can.
Yeah, sure, of course. Any last minute tips?
Yeah. Go fast and don't die.
All right. I'm pretty good at that.
Good luck, honey. You'll do fine. She kind of reaches out and pats you on the forearm. You'll do just fine. Okay. As the race is getting underway, they clear the area around the ether carriages. The racers all get into place. They put on helmets. They slide goggles on over their eyes. They wrap scarves around the lower halves of their faces. They hunker down into the seats, and the engines start vroom, vroom, making these very loud growling noises as they fire up these ether-powered pistons. there's a woman who comes out in front of the race. And she's holding this oversized handkerchief in her hand. She walks out in the middle, standing between two of these ether carriages. And she raises this oversized silken handkerchief above her head. Checks one last time to make sure all of the racers are ready. And then drops the handkerchief. In a metallic screech and the black curling smoke of burning ether, the 5 racers take off. Katya, for round number 1, how many points do you want to allocate towards speed and caution?
All 20 points in the speed.
All right. Alan, how would you like to allocate your NPCs points?
We'll go 50-50.
Okay, so 10 and 10.
Yeah.
All right. Austin, how about you?
Is it in increments of 10, or can I?
It does not matter. As long as it adds up to 20 points at this point.
Okay, then I will do 13 speed, 7 caution.
Okay. Jeff.
All speed.
All speed. All right. 0, 20. And Lloyd.
So Scorch has this like demon helmet.
Nice.
It's like ridiculous over the top chromed demon face with horns, and he's like smoking something inside, and like all this smoke is like billowing out of where the only air place in the helmet is, which is like these 2 flared bull nostrils. And he only understands speed, and so I'm going to go full speed as well.
All right. 0 to 20. All right. So, now that we have everybody's points allocated, I am going to roll to see what we come up with on the obstacle chart. Okay, that's a 5 on the die. So, this is a safe round. There are no obstacles this round. So, they knew that this was where the race was going to start. They made it kind of a long straightaway for exactly this kind of display that all of you or not all of you, but several of you are taking advantage of. And you're just pedal to the metal, screeching forward into the city of Arinivat. So, because there was no obstacles, Katya, you are going to move up to the position of 20. Alan, your character is Kazan. He went 10. Austin, yours is 7. So, about there.
No, it was 7
you were
caution.
13, that's right. That's right,
Thanks.
That's right. There you go. Thank you for keeping me honest. All right. Jeff, your character went to 20 as well. Oop. And Lloyd, you did too. Okay. All right. So you take off down this very cleared space, this wide street that's usually used to bring in shipments to these warehouses. And there's just ether smoke trailing behind you guys, and some of the bystanders can't even see what exactly is happening this early on in the race. So we have Katya with 20. 20 and 20, and then we have okay. Oops. Okay. So, we now come to round number 2. So, for round number 2, you guys are making a transition between this kind of warehouse-looking area into a different part of the city. So one of you, whoever wants to do so, tell me what this next leg of the race looks like. Where are you traveling through?
This is sort of a main thoroughfare that is crisscrossed by walking paths and bridges. Some of them pretty low in certain places that kind of like cross across this sort of cart path that someone might move goods down. But there's like a kind of a market district on either side, so there's a lot of paths for foot traffic.
Excellent. So yeah, there's a lot of people in this area, and they hear you coming, but they don't know what this sound necessarily is. Some of them might, but certainly not enough of them to be wise enough to quickly move out of the way. So, how are we going to allot points this round, Katya?
Is this still mostly a straightaway?
Yeah, there's just a lot of people and foot traffic.
Gotcha really has that sort of pressing the accelerator and feeling just the power of this thing move forward and the just the speed. It's almost like her hands or feet or however this thing operates is just glued to the throttle. And I think she's still going to go full 20 speed this round.
20. All right. Alan, what about Kazan?
15-5.
15 speed?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and Austin.
Garland the Golden is seeing everyone kind of pull away in front of him, and he knows that his carriage, the wingless phoenix, is destined to win this thing. So he's gonna gun it at full 20 for speed.
Okay.
He's got to catch up.
All right. And Jeff.
Yeah, so Crasher is going to keep just flooring it down on the pedal. Just this like insane twinkle in his eye. He's probably actually crazy. He's like hair like literally like stands like upwards, like a mad scientist style, just like biker twisted, almost like Super Saiyan level of absurd, like pointiness. And with this like crazy scar across his eye, and this like dastardly grin, will floor 20 speed. And I'd also want to try to ram whoever the closest person to me is while we're like making a turn, to try to like knock them off or slow them down.
All right, so this is you next to the last on the bottom. So it looks like Lloyd's Racer is the one that is right next to you. So
Yeah, I'll also be going full 20 speed.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so Scorch and Crasher, you guys are trying to basically stay neck and neck with one another, but Crasher, you're going to attempt to like run him off course. So this is what I'm going to need from you. These guys have land vehicles, and they are decent enough with them. So I'm going to need you to roll a d20 and add a +4. And you're going to be at disadvantage because you did not at least spend at least 10 points on caution before doing this. Yep, this is a risky maneuver.
Perfect. This is how I want it. Okay, yeah, that's going to be 8 total.
8 total, okay. So, not great. Crasher, you veer to the right, trying to slam into the side in the back of Scorcher's ether carriage. But Scorcher, you've seen this. Scorch, you know how this is done. And you let up on the pedal just enough that Crasher comes careening in front of you and crashes into some crates that are kind of set up on the side that he obviously was intending for you to. Crasher, you tear through them. Maybe.
I'll throw up like a rude dwarven hand gesture as I fly by. This is not the first time this has happened.
Absolutely. Okay. So now we have everybody's allotments. Now I'm going to go ahead and roll for the possible obstacle. Okay, that's a 17. 17 is major loss of control. So I need each of you, those of you who are rolling as NPCs, I need you to add 4 to this number. Katya. Let's see.
Still with disadvantage, right, Jeremy? Because I went full speed?
No, not for this.
Nope.
Only if you're trying to take an action on top of actually racing.
Okay.
Okay, so Katya, how are you trying to avoid this knot of people that is going to likely cause you to partially careen out of control?
I am going to let loose a flurry of dwarven obscenities as I scream and try to intimidate them out of the way.
Okay. All right, so go ahead and roll that intimidation.
Goddamn dice. You got a 4 on the die.
I'm pretty sure that you guys have points of inspiration, just as a note.
Do we?
You should.
I do, and I'll give you mine.
I had like
Okay.
3,
Yeah.
going into this session.
I have
I
3,
think I spent all mine a while
Oh,
ago
maybe.
because
I
I
have-
have none marked on my sheet.
I have enough. I'll give the one to Katya so she can
Okay.
not crash.
All right, because I do have a +6 to intimidation, but that was still only a 10. So let's try this one more time. Oh, yes, that's better. That's a 5 on the die, so it's an 11.
11.
I
Okay.
imagine just opening up my mouth to scream out these obscenities, and I'm not used to traveling at this speed, and it's just a mouthful of wind.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we put a bunch of flies. Yeah.
Just
Okay. So, Katya, you came up with a 10 or an 11 total, which is a
11
0
total.
modifier. So it still stands as a 10-point obstacle. And you also spent 0 points on caution. So that means that you have failed to avoid this obstacle. Okay. Kazan, Alan, what did you get total? 14? Okay, so that takes it from a 10-point down to an 8-point. You spent 5 points on caution. Okay, not enough to avoid the obstacle. Much closer, but you did not. All right, Garland the Gold. 14 total. Okay.
No, 11. 11.
11 total. I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's also a 0. That brings your 10 down to a 10. And you also spent 0 points on caution, so that is also not avoided. Crasher. Let's see, what'd you get?
22.
22. Okay, that is a 6 modifier, so that brings that down to a 4. But you spent 0 points on caution, so despite the wonderful handling of your ether carriage, you were just going too damn fast. All right, Scorch.
I got 17, but I also had no caution.
Right, okay. So once again, everybody gets caught in this. So major loss of control. You must use at least 5 caution points in order to regain control of your vehicle. If you do not, your checks will continue to be at disadvantage until you do so. All right. So, you guys tear into this area with all of these people everywhere, and it's just chaos. It's just mayhem, and people are doing their best to try to get out of your way. you're sure that several of them have lifelong injuries now. And there's all kinds of damage left behind, this wake of carnage behind the 5 of you as you tear through this section. So, Katya, you gain another 20 points. Kazan, you gain 15, which brings you to 35. Garland, Crasher, and Scorch all get an additional 20. So there's a 3-way tie for the lead at the moment at 40. With Kazan and Garland just behind. Okay. 40. Whoops. Congratulations. Put you at 35. And Garland at 33. All right. So, we've moved past this carnage and are now kind of making a slow transition out of the docks entirely and out of this thoroughfare. So if one of you would please, what does this new area that we're venturing into look like?
This is like a slum, sort of like right behind the docks, where like a lot of the dock workers would live. Those who like have the most menial jobs, and so it's like really tight streets with like a lot of overhanging sort of buildings that sort of basically connect, and tight streets. And so like there's various different ways to go. There's only one wide enough for like æther-carriages, and so we got to kind of like zoom in a little bit.
Absolutely. Everybody kind of has to narrow down. And there's probably even such variance in the height of these buildings that like you can even go up and over some of them, and like, you know, through people's balconies and things, over people's roofs. Okay. We're going to do a point allotment for the round. So, Katya.
So as we head into this slum area, coming out of that obstacle, Katya, I just overcorrect on my steering. I steer too hard to one side, and the carriage rolls up onto 2 wheels. I slam in the other direction, and it veers around somebody and goes up on 2 other wheels and starts doing this zigzag wobble, and it looks like she's going to lose control of this thing. And as she comes out of like the 3rd time of wobbling around and sort of the equivalent of high speed hip checking somebody with a cart full of crates with the ether carriage, she realizes let off the accelerator, and I'm going to spend 10 caution and 10 speed to regain control of this thing as we move into this narrow street.
Okay. 10 to 10. Kazan. That's you, Alan.
Kazan. Yeah, Kazan coming. Just staying in the back, trying to basically this first 40 feet of the race, just trying to gauge everyone's racing skill. Can I only affect racers next to me?
No.
Okay.
These things have, I mean, it's not quite as crazy as like Mad Max, but I mean, these things have all kinds of tweaks and things done to them.
Gotcha. So what I would say is, noticing that Katya is this new racer and she's having a tough time just controlling her vehicle, he'll reach into the carriage's so-called saddlebag compartment, and he pulls out this iron spiked chain that begins to just spark against the ground as it just dangles there. And then he's going to just try to whip it across and slap at her, trying to distract her and get her to either fall back or crash.
Okay, perfect. All right, so what are you doing with your points this round?
I think I'm gonna speed up, or I'm gonna stay the course of 15.5 because I think I'm gonna try to like distract her, but kind of like speed past her.
Okay, excellent. So, so when you go to make your check this round, you'll do so at disadvantage because you are also attacking, and you did not spend at least 10 points in caution. So just remember that whenever I go to call for the roll here in just a moment. Okay, Garland, how are you allotting your points?
After losing control of his carriage, he's going to play it a little safer this round, and hope that the rest of the racers end up just burning out, and he can zoom past them, and he'll go half and half, 10 and 10.
10 and 10. It was pointed out to me. I put Kazan in the wrong place. He is 25. But we'll just say this is a long-ass chain, because I like that. Okay. 10 and 10 for Garland. Crasher, how about you?
So as we like mow through this crowd of people, sending the carts like spiraling out of control, Crasher will just like let out this like maniacal screeching laughter that's just like ah ha, 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 as it like just slam on the throttle, regardless of the fact that his car is like speeding and careening out of control, and we'll just like jam full speed anyways, 20 speed.
All right, 0-20. Keep in mind your roll will be at disadvantage because of right now this is out of control. Okay, and
They didn't name him Crasher by accident.
I love this dwarf already. All right, and Scorch.
So not to be outdone in sheer mania, I'm also going to go for maximum speed. And I would like to activate the scythes on my wheels and try and fuck Crasher up as best I can.
Of course you would. All right, so that's going to be an attack. Your skill check and your attack will both be at disadvantage for the round.
Yeah, we're just both just going.
Like, these two crazy ass dwarves. I love this. Okay, so Kazan, let's go ahead and get your roll for your attack. Let's see how that's going to go. So let's see. For attacking with an actual weapon, these guys have a +3 to hit with a strength-based weapon, and
Okay,
do a d6 +1.
Okay, I got a 17 on, a 14 plus 3, so 17.
Okay. So Katya, does that hit your armor class?
I have an AC of 14 with my Armor of Shadow, so yes.
Okay. So go ahead and roll your damage.
Okay, d6 plus 1, you said?
Yes.
4.
So Katya, this spiked chain whips across this distance from behind you, almost kind of extending, the links extending kind of like with ether links in between the physical links, and like lashes inside the carriage and kind of pulls across your upper shoulder, kind of gives you this small gash in your upper arm. Okay. And then the other attack was Scorch against Crasher. All right, so let's go ahead and make that roll.
So disadvantage on the attack. Do I have any modifier to my attack? Is it just the same as driving?
Yeah, because this is a vehicle-based weapon, let's do it the same as driving. So a +4.
Okay. 11.
Okay, I think these things would probably have a set AC. And they're moving fast.
I might hit the car, but not the driver, I think. No way.
Yeah. For sure. Okay. So, like, you extend out these sides and you kind of pull up beside him where he's kind of coming back away from these wrecked boxes behind him, kind of back onto the track, and you try to grate these things along the sides of his carriage, and instead it just kind of goes along this kind of protective fender that comes down on the side, and there's just these like horrendous sparks that just fly from this thing, showering down behind you. Okay, that was everybody's attacks for the round, so let's go ahead and get everybody's skill checks. All of you have just the flat +4. Remember disadvantage if you have it. Katya, how are you navigating through this narrow shanty town?
Oh, let's see. I think I'm just going to rely on pure, I'm just going to use basic dexterity. Just trying to maneuver this thing through these narrow streets without hitting anything. Okay. Particularly in the wake of being struck from Kazan. And I imagine that as his chain rakes across my shoulder, it pulls a wisp of the armor of shadows, but it blends with a gout of the ether exhaust. And there's a moment where she considers doing something to him, but she instead just grips the steering wheel tighter. And yeah, I'll just do a straight dex check with a different die.
Okay.
Because that doesn't matter.
Oh, no.
With the +1 dexterity and another 4 on the die, that is a total of 5.
Okay. So, what that's going to mean is, Katya, your 5 carries a 8, 6, 4, a -3. No. Yeah, 3, -3 modifier. If it were a stat. So that brings your obstacle from a 10 to a 13. You spent 10 points to try to avoid the obstacle. So unfortunately, with that roll, you're going to crash into whatever you were trying to avoid. Okay, Kazan. Alan got 17. Okay, so that is a 3 modifier. And that brings it down to a 7. But you only spent 5 points on caution. So another run-in with the obstacle. Okay. Garland the gold. An 8. Okay, so that's a -1 modifier, makes the obstacle an 11. You spent 10 points on caution. But, again, poor driving failed you in this. Crasher. Where's Crasher? A 7 total. All right. So that's a -2. So that brings it to a 12, and with 0, that's absolutely a crash. Okay. Scorch. 19.
I'll be crashing too, though, I think.
Yeah. So it's a +4, but it's still, yep. All right. So everybody is running into this obstacle. What is the obstacle? Let's see. A 13. Minor damage. All right, so going through this shanty town, especially at these speeds, each one of your carriages is going to take some kind of damage that affects the way it drives. So you have two less points per round to spend now, which puts all of you at 18. Okay. But press forward through the craziness you do. Katya advances 10. Kazan goes 15. Garland goes 10. The other two go full on right, so got you to 50. These two chuckleheads over here at 60. Garland at 43, and Kazan at even 40. All right. So we move deeper into this shanty territory, this group of clustered shacks and homes. Definitely different than most of anything that you've seen here in Arinivat. Older architecture, rundown, haphazard buildings. But as you are transitioning deeper into this shanty, what does this next leg look like, someone? Anyone?
I think it looks like maybe some of these like catacomb tunnels that kind of go into this floating island a little bit, and kind of like split tunnels a bit. So like, although it's like one entrance inside, it kind of splits into several different tunnels that has like little breaks in between, so like we can catch each other every now and again. But you know, there are tight turns and dead ends, so you have to be extremely careful about where you're going in here, so that you make it all the way out on the other side.
Fantastic. Okay. So now that we have the lay of the land, let's do point allotment. Remember, everybody, because everybody got hit with the last... Yes. Everybody only has 18 points to spend this round. I think Crasher and Scorch are the only ones that are still out of control. Oops. I can spell, I promise. Alright, so Katya, what is your point allotment for this round?
So, can we spend bonus action features?
You can do so. It's just going to cost the same as trying to take an action.
It'll cost the full action to do.
Right. So
okay,
same thing.
cool.
If you don't spend at least 10 points on caution, you'll have to do it at disadvantage, etc. If there's rolling involved.
As we roll into this series of catacombs and the trails diverge, maybe a shower of sparks as we've all kind of collided with walls and things. I look over my shoulder and catch sight of Kazan, and I just reach my hand back and point at him, and it seems as if shadow leaps from my hand, mixes with the ether exhaust, and perhaps to Kazan's eyes, he just drives through this cloud of ether exhaust. But in fact, I am placing a Hexblade's curse upon him. So what that means is that I have a +3 bonus to damage rolls against him. I score a critical on a 19 or a 20 against him. And if he dies, I gain 10 hit points.
Okay.
And there's other things that tie into the Hex Curse.
Right.
So I do that, and then I'm also going to try to pull away from him. So I'm going to do... Got 18 points. But we're in catacombs, which is underground, which reminds me of a little bit of the outskirts of hell. And I'm going to punch it full speed.
Okay. 0 and 18.
Screw caution. Ingvarad's not here to boss me around.
Speaking of, this round, we're going to have interactions from everybody else's characters and things like that. Okay. Kazan, how are you allocating your points for the round?
I'm going to go full 18 as well, because Kazan. So Kazan's carriage enters the catacombs, being a dwarf, his carriage definitely the outside of it definitely looks like kind of that lava stone, and the ether looks like cracks of lava that kind of stream through. And in the front, he's got one of those big uh, studded like grinder wheels in the front. It's just like one of those big cylinders that they use to like crush stone.
Yeah.
And then he just like you just see him, and he just like takes this big puff of the cigar that he's been chewing this whole time, and just all this kind of smoke just belts out of his beard and everything, and he just like fully just lays down on the throttle as this stone crushing cylinder in the front just coming up right behind Katya's carriage. So he's going to try to like ram her in the back.
Excellent. Okay. So are you attempting to make an attack with that roller as well? Or just to overtake her,
Yeah.
and if she gets in the way?
Yeah.
Yes, to making attack. Okay. Just remember that will be, again, at disadvantage whenever you go to make the roll.
Okay.
Okay. Garland the Gold.
Feeling a little claustrophobic in this area, even though he's kind of not too close to the others. He's going to go for a very cautious 10 and 8. 10 caution, 8 speed.
Okay. Taking his time. All right. Crasher.
So as these like scythes from Scorch's car like grind against the like the fender of his cart, and then they like separate in these tunnels for a second, Crasher will like look down at his cart, which is still like wobbling and like hitting like the walls and like bouncing off, trying to like maintain control, which he's just not even remotely trying to do. We'll like look down and see like a metal rod that's been like dislocated from the side of his cart. It's probably important that it was there, but Crasher does not care about that anymore right now, and will like wrench the metal rod free from the side of like where the sides like scratched into his cart, and then when there's the tunnels like come back together, he'll see Scorch's cart still next to him, and just try to jam the rod down into one of Scorch's tires and just like lodge it within the spokes of the wheel. But I'll go 18 speed still, max.
All right. Balls to the wall. All right. And Scorch.
Yeah, so the previous crash like dislodged a bunch of shit, and now his brakes don't work, can't work, and so he's going to be going full speed all the time. That was his plan anyway, but now he has no other option. Yeah, that's it, I guess.
Okay. So we have 2 more attacks to resolve. Kazan, you have one against Katya, and then Crasher has one against Scorch. So Kazan, go ahead and roll yours. This is a vehicle-based attack, so you'll have a +4 on it.
All right. A disadvantage
Yeah.
with the +4. That is a 15.
Okay. So I had kind of set the armor class at of these ether carriages as a 15. So that is going to chew on the back of Katya's ether carriage a little bit. You can hear some of the bits of metal kind of crunching in between these large stone spiked rollers on the front of Kazan's ether carriage. So let's see here. Okay, yeah, we're just, since we already have this system in place, we're just going to treat this as another series of minor damage. So, Katya, you're going to lose a further 2 points to spend per round going forward. So you'll be at 16 now. Okay, Crasher, you are trying to jam this pipe into Scorch's wheel. So go ahead and make an attack. This is a U attack, so let's do this as a +3.
So with disadvantage, that's a 19.
Oh my god. Okay. So, as if this is not the first piece of Crasher's ether carriage that has been used as a weapon against someone else. He jams this down into...
Probably against Scorch specifically
right?
before.
Yes, definitely. He's like, the old broken rod trick, eh?
Not again! So you jam this down in there, and we are going to treat this as one of the other entrances on the obstacle chart here, which is slowed. Only half of your speed points are going to apply to your total this round.
Anything but that. Oh my god.
Okay. So,
Both Scorcher and Lloyd just died a little.
Yeah.
all right, so now I'm going to roll for the actual obstacle. Oh, that's a 6, so this is a safe round, despite everything else that's going on. I don't know how in the world you racing through these catacombs is going to go off without a hitch. But it does so. So you guys are all safe for the round. So that means, Katya, you are going to move forward. This is before the penalty is going to apply, so you'll move forward 18. Which will put you at 68. Kazan, you move forward 18 as well. Let's put you at 58. Garland, you move forward 8. So you are going to be just past 50. Crasher, you move forward 18. Scorch, this pipe in your wheel manages to slow you down considerably, and you manage to almost crash into one of these dead ends, but manage to pull back on the throttle just enough to avoid your imminent demise. Okay. So that's it for the round, except for, as I said, the rest of you. Your NPCs, or not your NPCs, we're playing the NPCs. Your PCs. Was there anything that you wanted to try and pull as a helping mechanism, a detrimental effect on some of the other racers? Anything like that?
Are Scorch and Crasher both dwarves?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I guess the only thing Bastrad would want to do is try to create like some minor illusion of like a large rock or a small barrel or something in the road that looks like it's like something that would be that you'd want to navigate around that would potentially throw your navigation off if you were to hit it.
Okay. So this large stone block seems to trigger from the wall, almost like a trap in a dungeon. This thing just kind of like slams out in front of both of you, and you both kind of have to jerk the wheel hard to the left to avoid slamming right into it. Okay, so we are on to the next round. Crasher and Scorch, you being affected by this illusion, you're already both at disadvantage because you're both still out of control, so mechanically it won't have an additional effect because it would have just basically applied disadvantage to your roll this round. But those of you who are watching the race, you can see that the Arinivat guard have become very active all of a sudden. They are running through the streets in squadrons here and there, and it's definitely apparent that they are trying to catch the racers in the act. All right. We are on to the next round. Katya, how would you like to spend your points?
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
See if you will allow this as my action. I would like to. I know we joked about it beforehand, but I would like to attempt to fiddle with the controls and see if I can do an on-the-fly repair to try to get back some of the potential speed that I'm losing.
Okay.
And I'm also going to slow down to do this. So I'm going to spend the 10 caution
Okay.
and just take 6 speed.
All right. So yeah, you kind of slow down a little to try to fix some of this damage. I think.
And I'm proficient with Tinker's tools.
Okay, excellent.
So I don't know exactly what kind of a check. I'm thinking there's
Do you have sleight of hand?
I don't. There's actually let's see if I can find it real quick. There is a here we go. Xanathar's has some specific rules for using the various tool sets.
Okay.
And then I was just checking real quick. Tinker's kit, where is it? Right. Tinker's tools. Temporarily repair or a disabled device. Repair an item in half the time or improvise a temporary item scraps. It just gives DCs. It doesn't say what skill to use.
Okay, so let's just call this a intelligence or wisdom. It's either, gut instinct on how to try to patch this thing together, or you're using what Darian showed you before you started.
Well, my intelligence is an 8.
So maybe wisdom.
My wisdom is an 11. So there's a plus 0 there. But with the proficiency bonus, that would give me a plus 3 then. So, is that going to be straight without disadvantage because I spent 10 caution?
Yes, it will.
Okay. So straight roll, plus 3. This is the third die that I've rolled. And I rolled another 4. I'm rolling like Talmud.
You're
Take another
around
inspiration
one,
from
right?
me.
Lloyd's throwing another inspiration. So, all right, let me use this.
You are
this
rolling
die
the
here.
round die, right?
I'm rolling the d20.
Okay.
Let's try this. Okay, that's better. That's a 12 on the die, which is the highest I've rolled all night, I think. With a plus 3, that makes it a 15 on the attempt to repair this racer.
Excellent. Okay. So that is as an action in addition to your racing that you're doing. So, okay. Yeah, a 15 is certainly good enough to repair. We're going to say that it just repairs the 2 points. So you're back to an 18. Right.
Okay.
Okay. And we've got you down for 10 and 6. All right, Kazan.
I'd like to fire my red turtle shell at. No, so as Katya is slowing down, he'll just blow right past her. He's going to go hit his full 18 and try to cut to the lead.
All right. Garland,
Feeling that he succeeded in his goal in trying to get her out of the or fall back. So
right, to overtake her at the very least, if not knock her out of the race.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, Garland.
Garland the Gold was hoping this could be a clean race, but as soon as one of those, dangerous rough riding idiots pulled ahead, it became clear that they weren't going to just destroy each other. So Garland's going to have to try to help along with that. So he's going to go his full 18 and take the disadvantage, but try to launch one of his undercarriage spears at whichever of the two it has a good chance to hit.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, at this point, it's going to be at disadvantage, so honestly, you can launch this thing at either one of them. Crasher is the further away of the two from you, but you could hit either one of them.
Yeah, Crasher's the better goal just because if I can get them to slow down to each other's speed, then there's a good chance that they'll still just knock each other out of the race.
Sure, absolutely.
And I can blow past them in a blaze of glory. Oh, God. Well, first roll on the die was a 2, so I doubt I'm going to do worse than that. Yeah, I didn't. I got an 8. So it just flies at a completely wrong angle. It happens to be like right during a curve and just plants itself in a wall.
Absolutely. There's this almost cartoonish kind of like as this thing like embeds itself into the side of this catacomb. Crasher, having just been narrowly missed, well, not really narrowly, just missed by this spear that Garland the Gold has launched at you. How would you like to allocate your points?
To the surprise of nobody, Crasher's going to continue just rattling onwards, max speed. As he's driving, he's going to like reach down, like already laughing even before he's even like touched anything. He like grabs this like small metal rod, which will like flick out, which will like extend into this like strange pointed thing, and it'll like begin to like spark with electricity at the end of it. He's going to like shove that behind his car to try to like ionize the exhaust from his cart into like a plasma torch to try to burn Scorch while he speeds past him.
I love you guys so much. Oh, holy shit. Wonderful. Okay, so yeah, I mean, this will be a vehicle-based attack, so go ahead and roll it up.
Can I use Darian's inspiration on my rolls now?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna do that.
Oh my god. Gunning for you, Lloyd.
Oh, that's a 17 on the die.
Oh gosh. It was a 17 on the die?
Yeah, so 21.
Oh my god. All right.
Yeah, so this like the electricity on the end of this rod will like begin to like spark into this exhaust, which will begin to like send this like spiral of electric current through it, which will then like send this like torch of like electricity and aether exhaust like burning in a cloud where Crasher like leaves, and this like as his car will like roar out of control, sending this like shower of burning electrified ether into Scorch's face.
Which is exactly what Scorch wants. His name is Scorch, and he loves fire, and so does his chariot. So he'll hit the secret absorb fire button. No, I'm kidding. He is going to try and fire a grappling hook at Crasher. And try and if my car can't go fast enough, then I'll at least hang on to his. Is my car going to explode from the fire first, or?
You're going to take some damage.
Okay,
so I think we're going to do this as one of the other entries on the obstacle chart is a minor hazard. So this damage is done whenever it's done directly to the racer. Okay, so these racers have 18 hit points. Jeff, I need you to roll 4d6.
What?
As Crasher will just maniacally roar like a maniac, just as he like dealing 12 damage.
So yeah, there's this smell in the catacombs of burnt hair and skin as Scorch is living up to his name, and you know the fire from the exhaust behind Crasher kind of dies down, and there's Scorch right behind him, kind of like smoking and like on fire. Okay, Scorch.
He has this insane helmet because his face is already burnt off from having suffered like so many of these like instances before, and so like he's mostly covered in like armor because he's like all over, just like melted. And so he like sees through like the lenses of his helmet and like is like pointing this like harpoon, and he's like let go of the steering wheel, just like moving as fast as he can, like holding onto the harpoon. And he's like trying to get a good shot, and boom, gonna fire it and try and crash and attach on to Crasher.
Okay.
I'm gonna give him a point of inspiration too.
There's so much meta happening in this race.
I absolutely love it. So that'll wash and make it just a natural roll then with a +4.
All right, here we go. Big books, no whammy. That's fucking crit.
Okay. So, Scorch, what? How are you allocating your points? 0-18 still?
I only have like 9, I think, speed. I think because
That was just for the round.
Oh yeah, then all speed.
Okay. All right. So, because of the critical, in addition to whatever else is going to happen, for the round, Scorch, you also get 10 additional points to your speed.
All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add it to my speed so that I'm going to basically like hit the grappling hook, and as we turn a corner, it's going to like slingshot me around and ahead of him, like just screeching and like up over one of the walls, and he's like driving along the wall, and then just like boom, crashing down in front of him.
Absolutely. And because you rolled a critical with the situation and everything, we're going to go with yet another obstacle chart entry for stopped. No speed points are applied to the finish line total this round. So, Crasher, this grappling hook reaches onto you and pulls you into like a deficit of speed. Even though your wheels are definitely still spinning, it's pulling you back far enough that you're going to gain no ground this round. Okay, so that is reduced to 0 for the round. Okay, now I'm going to roll for the possible obstacle. An 11. Okay. The obstacle this round is slowed. So with this tangle between Crasher and Scorch, since they are still technically out front in the race, everyone is going to possibly have an issue with this change of position. So everybody who is not Katya, go ahead and make your roll with the +4. Take disadvantage if you need to take disadvantage. Katya, how are you avoiding this clusterfuck that is happening in front of you?
I imagine just with the flashing of Kazan's sort of magma-themed racer and all of the ether light and exhaust burns and everything, Katya's having flashbacks of the Down Under, and for most people that would be a bad thing. So she's going to rely on her instincts, and I'm going to use insight to see if I can avoid.
Okay.
Which is only a +3, but I get to roll that straight because I spent 10, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's see how this goes. God bless America!
There's no way it's another 4.
No, it's a 3.
Oh. I give you my gifts freely.
I even carefully selected that die.
It's the Talmud curse.
Jeez. I'm gathering a pile of punished dice right now. Yeah, so that's a total of 6.
Okay.
Well, in Katya's defense, she has never raced an ether carriage before, so
that's very fair. So the 6 will bring the 10 of the obstacle down. Oh no, it'll bring it up 8. It's to a 12. You did spend 10 points on caution. However, it's because of bad control, bad insight. Apparently, your gut led you incorrectly, and you are going to be slowed, which means you will only be able to apply half of your speed towards your total this round. Kazan, what did you get? 17. So that is a 3 modifier. That brings it down to a 7 obstacle. but you spent 0 points on caution this round. So, you will also be slowed. Garland, 24. Oh, you rolled a 20. Fantastic. Okay. You also are going to get plus 10 for the round. 24 total, which is 7 modifier. So you bring it from a 10 down to a 3. However, you spend 0 points for caution, so you're still going to be slowed, but you will have the bonus added in, I guess, before the slow. Okay, Crasher. What we got for Crasher? Crasher. It's 14. So it's a 2, so it brings it down to an 8. Nope. It won't matter because, yeah, you're stopped instead of slowed, but you're also slowed, however that works. Scorch. 6. All right. That's a -2, so that brings it to a 12. All right, you are slowed also. So everyone only gets to add half. I don't think you guys... If you've had an obstacle, I don't think anybody has successfully navigated it yet. Maybe some jackass set the the difficulty too high. All right, so Katya, who is at 68, will be adding 3 points. 71. And I probably could have set this at 100. That's what we had it at this weekend, but it seemed really short. But there wasn't a lot of attacking and things going on, so that's certainly a
You didn't account for this group.
That's true. So if you
You
guys
can just assume anything is going to take 3 times as long due to just extra role play, just be due to being extra.
That's very true.
I haven't even broke out my final form yet.
So if you guys want, I'm perfectly fine to keep going to 150. But if you guys would rather, we can shorten it to 100. I'll leave that up to y'all.
Let's give it a couple more rounds, see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, like I said, I haven't even done anything yet.
Okay. Okay, Crasher stopped. So Scorch is going to 28, so that is 14. 74. 83? Is that right? I'm not sure if my math is checking out on that, but it seems right. Oops.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and everybody's placement, I think, is correct. Cool. All right, so there's that round. So you guys are transitioning from these catacombs, making your way kind of back out of these tunnels, slowly but surely. So one of you, if you would, please describe where this race is now taking us.
This is a mostly elven district of middle to lower upper class residential areas, streets lined with trees that are decorative in golds and violets, an idyllic setting, people quietly enjoying, their day-to-day routines, when suddenly this just tumultuous noise erupts from the catacombs into these residential streets, and we come bursting onto the scene.
Absolutely. I almost picture this like idyllic, like almost Paris style cafe. It's like, in this gorgeous part of town, and these people are very, snooping, kind of drinking their coffee. And all of a sudden, yeah, like Lloyd says, do you hear that noise? Perfect. All right, so now we've got point allotment again. So, Katya, what you gonna do?
So, I don't know how you're adjudicating lateral distance, but I'm hitting the glyph of warding button in the center of my steering wheel and activating the spirit guardians, which affect anybody within 15 feet.
Okay.
Which, based on the numbers alone, that's everybody but Scorch. Scorch missed it by 1 mathematically. If that's on purely linear distance. Like I said, I don't know how you're adjudicating the lateral distance, but and then I'm coming out of this tunnels into this street, and I'm gonna punch it at full speed.
Okay. So you're at 18 again, so 0 and 18.
Yep.
And you're going to be making well, this isn't you making an attack, so this is going to be a freebie. Because
they make a save usually for Spirit Guardians.
Yeah, so
okay,
Spirit Guardians is a wisdom saving throw. And I believe that would be versus Ingvarad's spell save DC.
Right, which is pretty high. It is... DC is going to be 14.
Okay.
That feels low. Yeah, 14.
Okay, excuse me. So yeah, Katya will kind of move across the front of these racers. So essentially you're going to be moving on the graphic what looks like down and moving in between Garland and Crasher, and then trying to pass them that way. So that way you can hit all 3 of them.
Sure.
Okay. So it's a wisdom save at a 14, you said, Lloyd?
Yes, 14 is right.
Okay. So Alan, Austin, and Jeff, I will need you guys for Kazan, Garland, and Crasher to make wisdom saving throws. It's a d20 roll, and they have a 0 to their wisdom. Ooh, 2. Okay. A 10. And a 5. Okay. So all 3 of them failed.
So I would say, and even if not, I'm going to ask Lloyd to roll the damage on this because I've been rolling like crap tonight.
Sure.
Okay.
Makes good sense.
I think it's 3d8.
It's 3d8, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
If you cast it at 3rd level. And that's radiant damage.
Okay. 14.
Okay. So, Kazan, Garland, and Crasher, you each take 14 points of damage from these swirling... Well, what does it look like when it activates, Lloyd?
Oh, yeah, so it's... they're like these, like automatons, these like strange, angelic sort of beings that like appear and like protect and like hover around Katya in this like circle, each with like a hammer that's like swirling around them. So you have this like bizarre, perfect geometric pattern that just like smashes at anything that comes close.
Oh, an additional effect of this, Jeremy. Now, it because it affects the person. I don't know how you want to do this. Is if they are affected by this, their speed is halved.
Oh, shit. Okay, cool.
I just saw that looking at the spell description.
So, not only are these automatons kind of like attacking the drivers, but I almost imagine that they're actually attacking the ether carriages themselves. They're like, reaching their like spectral arms and hands like into the basically like the engine compartments and just like trying to just wreck as much havoc as they can. Okay, so everybody rolled poorly enough that you're going to be slowed for the round as well. So Kazan is slowed, Garland is slowed, Crasher is slowed. Okay. And then Katya, you are 0 and 18. So Kazan, how do you want to allocate your points?
Well, I'm slowed, so I guess I'm gonna go full speed if I'm gonna go anywhere.
Okay. So 0 and 18. Garland.
I want to go as fast as I can and just try to ram Katya after that horrific attack.
Okay. So you're 0 and 18 also, but we're also going to need an attack roll. You were using your vehicle, so you'll have a +4 on this attack.
I rolled twice because I get disadvantage, and I got 13 on the die both times, so that's a 17.
Okay, which is enough to hit the carriage. So, though you repaired some of the damage, Katya, because this is the same one that has the big stone rollers on it, yeah?
No, that was
No,
Kazan's.
it's Kazan. So you're just ramming just the chassis against chassis.
I kind of wanted to try to push against the back of her thing and either send her out of control or try to slow her somehow.
Okay, cool. So what we'll do then is we'll go ahead and look at one of the other the obstacle charts, and that is minor loss of control. So you're going to have to spend at least 2 caution points on your next turn in order to regain control. Otherwise, while it's out of control, you'll be at disadvantage. Okay, so for the moment, Katya is out of control as well. All right. And 0 and 18 for Garland. So, Crasher.
So, I'm sorry to do this to your poor system, but Crasher is going to try to do something completely stupid. As he sees Scorch catapult past him with this thing, and then see his car starting to get his car that's already still out of control this entire time start to get smashed by these spirit guardians, he's going to grab the rope that's latched on to his cart from Scorch's and wrap it around his arm, jump out of his car and cut the rope and try to climb the rope into Scorch's car.
Oh my god, I love it.
I'm going to give him my last inspiration point so he can do this.
Well, you see, my main character died because I spent all my points of inspiration
Yep.
in PC race.
Making this race as rad as humanly
I
possible.
love it. Okay.
So I don't think I need to allocate any points for that. I think that'll just be me out of the race and instead trying to kill Lloyd too. But for now, I'll be attached, behind his car, hanging onto this rope, trying to like action movie hero style, pull himself up the rope.
It's just turned into very fantasy Mad Max.
Perfect. All right, so Crasher. Let's see. Okay, so this roll is only going to have a +2 to it. This maneuver you're trying to pull off.
Thanks to inspiration, I got a 15 on the die, so that'll be 17.
Okay, so you successfully leap out of your ether carriage, which careens off course and crashes into this sidewalk cafe. And there's just tables and chairs and umbrellas and people that just shower everywhere as there's this eruption of ether fire that kind of goes up in this bluish purple plume and then immediately catches everything in the vicinity on fire. But out of the flames comes Crasher on this cable as he's just, Schwarzeneggering his way kind of up this cable to Scorch's ether carriage. Your forearms are missing skin from the road rash that you're getting, but you're on his carriage, and we're going to see how that's going to play out. I guess, here in a minute. Okay. So, Crashers. So somebody is going to be without an ether carriage very soon. Scorch, how would you like to allocate your points, and or what would you like to do?
Maximum speed.
Okay.
And like feeling like the tug, and like I guess hearing like the like cackling getting closer. I like look over his shoulder and see him there. And then I'll see you now, you son of a bitch, and he's gonna jam something into the steering wheel so it can't turn, and then hit the eject button and like fire himself out of the car to safety, hopefully.
All right. Okay, cool. So let's make a roll. This is a vehicle-based. It's not an attack, but it's a vehicle-based thing, so
Sure.
we'll do it with a +4 still. You are going full speed, so it will still be at disadvantage.
I wish I had another point of inspiration.
Okay, so just vehicle. Okay. Oh my god, I missed a crit. I'm heartbroken. It's still a 16 on the die, so it'll be 20, not natural. A dirty 20, as you would say.
So you reach over and pull like this lever, and your entire seat like just jettisons upwards, and you fly like up, and there's this like span of building that kind of crosses over the area where you guys are racing, and you just like crash like straight through the shutters of someone's apartment, and just like screech to a halt in this chair where you're kind of still strapped in, and there's people like sitting at dinner and like just kind of watching, or I guess it would be breakfast at this point, just kind of like watching you screech past, and you come to a stop, safe but out of the race.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'd love it if he could like skid to a halt like right at a balcony or something, so he can like watch what happens with Cratchet. That would be ideal.
Absolutely. Okay, so Scorch is out of the race. We're gonna pull you. Oh, yeah, that's fine. You were at 83, so we're gonna move Crasher into that position. So Crasher, you're at 83. Still very much out of control.
DNF. Did not finish.
Disqualified. Okay. So now I'm going to roll for an obstacle. I don't know that I really need to do this. A 6, so it's a safe round, quote unquote. So there are no outside forces that are affecting you guys on this leg of the race. So, somebody was slowed? Was it Kazan?
Well, the only one that wasn't slowed from the I don't even know, because this is too much fun. I don't remember. Is this the round I activated the Spirit Guardians?
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
everyone except for you would be slowed, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
Scorch.
Lloyd was the only one that wasn't affected by it,
Okay. Cool.
besides myself.
But then I did go for the trying to hit catch, yeah.
Have we
Like
not rolled
nudge
that
her
yet?
car. So she had the minor out of control.
Oh, perfect.
From that.
Yes, that's right.
I don't remember if that did anything else.
Yep. That'll go into effect next round, since she already allocated her points for the round. Okay, so Katya, that puts you with 18. So you are out of control right now. Kazan, you put 9 points. Garland, you also put 9 points. And Scorch allocated 18 points and was not slowed, so his carriage is going to continue forward at full speed, which actually will, as of now, move Crasher up to You're at 83. 101.
101.
Okay. Crasher is not in control of the vehicle that he's on, but as of right now, he's winning the race.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, okay.
Is he in the vehicle yet, or just still like
He's
being
more,
pulled along by it?
he's more on the vehicle than in the vehicle.
Okay.
I imagine he's like kind of where the spoiler would be of this car. He's like kind of climbing over the back hump of this thing. But he's certainly not in a position to control this vehicle at all yet. This is
So
absurd.
imagine like the whole like section where the seat is gone, right? Like it's not just like the chair, but like the whole section. It's just like a hole in the middle of the car.
Absolutely. This thing's like held together by like 2 screws and some bubble gum at this point. Okay. That does put us into the next round. So, Katya.
So first of all, I would like to point out that the spirit guardians are persistent.
Oh God, yes. Oh my God. Okay.
I plan to go full speed. 2, I want to see what these spirit guardians do to everybody. But you know what? I think even regardless of that, because he's out of range anyway, again by like 2 points. Or is he? What's 15 and 76? Yeah. I'm going to, as an action, look over at what was Scorch's car and is now pulling a very bedraggled crasher behind it. And as it's careening out of control, I'm just going to look at those gloriously glowing ether tanks. And I'm going to send a shockwave of shadow towards the ether tanks on that ether racer as I cast Shatter.
Oh my God.
Which normally would be a
bastard.
con save, but it's an inanimate object. So I don't know how you want to do that. But that's going to do 5d8
Oh my God.
of
Wow.
thunder damage.
Okay.
19 points of thunder damage.
Okay. So, well, Crasher's not in control of this vehicle, like at all. So there's not going to be much that he's able to do to avoid this. So
I'd jump off the car.
Yeah, you can absolutely try to escape from the situation yourself. But the vehicle is not going to be able to escape this damage at all. Okay. Yeah. How much was it again?
19 points of thunder damage aimed at the ether tanks on the carriage.
And isn't there something about, like, if it is a particularly susceptible object? It's like,
It just says a creature.
Inorganic material takes double damage.
Yeah.
For at least
Such as stone, crystal, or metal has disadvantage on the saving throw.
Yeah.
Oh, disadvantage on the save.
I think that's
I
more
see.
for like constructs and stuff. Because it's the last line is a non-magical object that isn't being worn or carried also takes damage if it's in the spell's area. So that's up to you how you want to mitigate the saving throw.
So I mean, like, this is the fuel tank for these things, and they're absolutely fragile. They're made of glass and like scrollwork metal that kind of holds the tanks in place. So your shatter goes out, and these tanks just crumple and then explode everywhere. And there's this big fireball of, again, blue and purple ether that kind of erupts into this large column of black smoke. So that vehicle is also going to be out of the race. Crasher, let's see if you can avoid taking this damage. So it's You said it's a con save?
It's a con save, but how far behind the vehicle is he?
He's like on the vehicle's back.
Oh, okay, because it's a 10-foot radius, so yeah, he would be in the radius of it.
I think so for sure. Okay, so a con save is a
Can-
plus
can-
2. Go ahead.
Can I, with your permission, just do something stupid narratively with Crasher
Please.
and put him out of the race? So as he sees this, because I imagine that him and Scorch have been in so many of these races at this point that these sorts of events are like not new to them. Like they're this crazy. They haven't done this many races and been this crazy without having a couple of tricks up their sleeves. So as he sees the car beginning to like shake from the shatter spell beginning to erupt, he'll just like leap off of it like spread eagle, and then this like green like aether tendrils will like shoot from his back as he'll cast feather fall, creating like a magical parachute, which will like spring from his back, sending him like drifting off from the car as it like continues to like roar past before exploding like action movie style behind him as he'll like drift away to who knows where.
Okay. Let's see if it ends so well for Crasher. So it will be a Constitution saving throw with a plus 2.
That's actually a 19.
Oh, okay. Is it save for half, Jake, or is it saving?
Yes, it's save for half, so that would be what did I say? It was 19. So
10 points. Okay. And you were damaged earlier, Crasher. So I think you had
from the
14 points
Guardians.
earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so your tendrils kind of activate. This parachute kind of comes up behind you, but this roiling explosion kind of rolls over you, and as it does so, it knocks you out. It takes you down, and as you go unconscious, the tendrils kind of stop extending and instead retreat and disappear back into you, and you hit the ground and kind of roll to a stop kind of at some of these spectators' feet as they kind of jump back out of the way, and you come to a rest kind of amongst them. So you are not dead, but you are unconscious and not doing so hot. More than likely, unless somebody comes to your aid, you're probably going to die. Okay.
Scorch has got to run and heal his buddy.
Save it. I didn't kill you, so you can't die.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just another Saturday morning for these guys.
Okay. So, Katya, we have you at 0 and 18 again. We've resolved your action.
I don't mean to be that guy, but is Spirit Guardian still going to hit everybody?
Oh, Jesus.
Is the spell technically?
Oh yeah, because that would the other two would.
That was
10
gonna be my
minutes.
question of,
Yeah.
is it still damage or just the slow is persistent?
Damage.
The whole
Every
thing
round,
is the whole
damage
thing
on the
is
slow.
It's a dirty spell.
Hideous,
So we
yeah.
make a save again?
Okay, so yes.
that's a DC 14 whiz save.
Yeah, and half damage if you're successful.
And we only had 18 hit points, right? And we already got hit for 14? Right? I rolled
Yeah.
a 5, so...
I rolled a 16 on the die, so. But still, I don't think it's going to help.
I don't know that it will, honestly.
Well, if Galran can see this coming, that if these spirit guardians are still just pounding at his car, he would definitely try and escape. I have an idea for that, but I don't know if he has time for that.
I was going to say, I mean, they're active on her turn, so it goes off first thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we will. So let's do this, because it's active on the car, and the cars are somewhat large themselves. The 16 was enough to make the save, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. So what we'll say is instead, Garland, of you taking the damage from the spirit guardians, that the damage is strictly to your vehicle. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and that's going to be enough to trash the vehicle anyway, almost regardless of what he goes with. So seeing this relentless pounding, these there's two small slits in the back of his golden armor, and they just spring forth these little like wispy ether wings, and he'll cast fly on himself and just try to rise out of his poor wingless phoenix as it careens off to almost certainly crash.
Okay. And it definitely does crash. It actually kind of starts to wobble a little with some of the damage that it's taken, and then starts to favor that side, and then careens off to the side and actually just like crashes through like a plate window of a store. And there's screaming coming from inside as it only comes to a stop once it runs into, whatever's inside that shop. But Garland himself is safe. So, Kazan, for the moment, you have these spirit guardians coming at you. Did you roll your check already?
Yeah, I rolled a 5.
That's right.
Did you roll damage, Lloyd?
Oh, for Spirit Guardians? Sorry, no, I did not. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. 13.
Okay. So, these spirit guardians surround and pummel not only the vehicle of, but also the body of Kazan. And Kazan, the world goes black as you slump in the driver's seat of your ether carriage, and it kind of putters and coughs and pulls off to the side until it kind of like bumps harmlessly into kind of some of these side rails that separates the street and the thoroughfare from the traffic. You, with a bump on your head and the slashes from the spirit guardian, are also dying unless somebody comes to your rescue. Katya, you're the only racer left on the track, but the race is not over yet. I'm going to roll for an obstacle. 18. Major damage. Damage to the carriage. You're going to have 5 less points allotted per round, but since you're the only one left still racing, tell me how it looks as you cross the finish line by yourself.
It looks like an empty ether carriage crossing the finish line, because seeing Kazan get taken out by this, I am going to cast Misty Step from inside the moving vehicle and basically attempt to this is what I want to attempt. I'm going to attempt to Misty Step exactly where I am, basically leaving the vehicle and leaving myself standing on the road, if that makes sense. Sort of like the Ghost Twins in the Matrix Reloaded.
Absolutely.
Check your box where your window captures are. There should be an eyeball icon. It looks like you might have that turned off.
They're still all turned on. There's something from
Huh.
being on the other channel or on the other scene. But going to. Well, hang on here. I don't know. I have no idea what happened. Why it's doing that.
Oh, well, we can still see your lovely face.
I'm ready for my close-up. Okay.
So yeah, I would like to cast Misty Step to let the ether carriage cross the finish line without me. And if that succeeds in basically just in standing on the road, I want to run to Kazan. And it's a weird instinct because it's not 100% Katya. It's Ingvarad's voice, Ingvarad's influence, pushing Katya to do this. And it's surprising that it's this reflexive thing. But part of it is seeing everybody go down around her. In her mind, she's won the race no matter what. So, yeah, I'm going to attempt to run to Kazan and see if he's all right.
So you run over to him and you manage to stabilize him as best you can. It's not the same effect as curative magics, but you're at least able to prevent him from dying. And you can see that Scorch has made his way over to Crasher and is trying to do the same for him. So, broken, bruised, injured pride. Everybody has survived this very dangerous race, though the same cannot be said for the ether carriages. Only one of them has two of them managed to escape with more than just or nothing more than just superficial damage. So Katya is touted as a victor by most of the people who gathered for the races. Everyone seems shocked that this happened, at this outcome. They seem surprised at Katya's capabilities, not necessarily behind the wheel, but certainly with this shadow magic that she seems to wield. So we're going to go ahead and end for the evening at this point. But I think what I'd like is for all of you to kind of take us out, if you will. How does the end of this race kind of going whenever the PCs are all reunited with one another?
Katya is not as excited as I imagine everyone would expect. She's surprisingly subdued and actually seems to be angry. You would see the shadow of the armor of shadows. Normally she kind of keeps it under control and it's just broiling below the surface and kind of with her clothing, but it's seething off of her as a physical manifestation of her anger. And the moment she sees Ingvarad, that was pointless. That was senseless violence and chaos with no purpose other than entertainment. I hate it.
Those kinds of things exist everywhere. Fighting pits, races, hunting, all of it bears a similar sort of purpose. But you didn't let it get to you. You remained you. And kind. And that was well done.
It's nothing like delving. When we delve, there's a purpose. We're gathering resources. We're extracting the ores and the metals from below the earth. When we face the demons and we face the brimstone heat, the sulfur, it's for a purpose. This is senseless. And she kind of looks around the city and seems to be looking at it with new eyes. It's a disgusting display of extravagance.
This whole place is.
The only good thing is that maybe Kazan lives.
Because of you.
And perhaps he owes me now.
She's like a little less proud than she was a second ago, because it wasn't quite entirely altruistic, but it was still altruistic enough. And she won't make a deal of it now. She'll just put her hand on Catch's shoulder and say again, well done.
All right. Unless there is anyone else that has anything. So we pull kind of up and away from this crash site, this sidewalk cafe, somewhat upper crust part of town, as the Arinivat guard close in from several different directions, trying to get to the bottom of what has happened and find the culprits. With their friends injured, kind of helped along, held on shoulders, limping, the people who competed in this race melt into the alleyways and disappear into the dreaming city. And that is where we're going to end the session for tonight.
That is without a doubt, one of the most fun sessions I have had of just pure insanity.
I legitimately hurt from laughing. It was insane.
Awesome. That makes me very, very happy. I've wanted to run a race for a long time. I've done chases and stuff, and I've never, ever found rules that I liked. The way that it did it, the way that it handled it. Turn-based system just isn't built well for it. So I did a little bit of research, and I found a little bit of an idea that kind of spawned a train of thought that kind of led to this idea. And I was really happy when I settled on it. And like I said, my wife helped me play test it a little over the weekend. And I was like, I think this is going to work. So I'm very, very happy that not only all of you enjoyed actually playing through it, but also the people who were watching it said that it was a lot of fun to watch, which is perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping.
The closest I've ever seen, and it's a distant thing is the Tomb of Annihilation's dinosaur racing in Port Nyanzaru, turn-based racing with some combat elements. It just pales in comparison to what you did with this.
I just love that it was so undefined, like what our cars could do, because it just allowed for all these constant surprises, you know, like, because it wasn't like, okay, your car is this, and it's got this many hit points, and it's kind of just like wacky races, and it's like, okay, I'm going to hit this crazy button and do this thing, like, just topping all the time. It was just very, very fun, and like,
I feel like we all tapped into our like crazy taxi / insert your like Twisted Metal.
Yes.
Yes.
I was thinking of very Twisted Metal kind of video game car racing mayhem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that
I think
were pod race jokes and Super Mario Brother jokes, or the Mario Kart jokes being thrown around everywhere. That was beautiful.
I feel like almost like Austin and Alan were the only two trying to run a straight race.
It's tough to do in a town like this.
I wish I'd had like one more turn, because I kept waiting for a good time to fire off my secret weapon, a completely superficial like major illusion of a flaming phoenix above me that does absolutely nothing mechanical, but just makes me look awesome, which I kept waiting for the moment that they both crashed into each other, and I would just ride with that above me right through the wreckage to the finish line, but it just was not to be.
Triggered spirit warriors, guardians on a moving vehicle is so OP. Oh my god.
Yeah, that was pretty busted.
Yep, it was really unfair, actually, because you just have to be near them too. Like, it's just, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I hate Crasher so much, and I wanted him dead so badly. It was so fun.
I'm so glad that there was somebody else who was willing to buy into just the absurd escalation of it all with me. It's like that was the plan going in. It's just like, I'm just going to just be over the top, like pedal to the metal, no matter what. And like, I'll probably just crash out by myself, like run into a wall and die. So it made me very happy that that was not how it ended up playing out. That we got this like absurd, like cartoon-esque, like escalation, like Looney Tunes style war against each other.
The meta gameplay of you guys using inspiration for each other was just brilliant too.
It's like so much funnier if it works. Like if like, somehow this absurd shenanigans somehow like play out. I wanted to make sure that happened.
Yeah, it went way better than I could have imagined. So thank you all for having that amount of buy-in and just going with it.
Definitely for future iterations, or if you publish it, 100 is a good.
Yeah. Like I
is
said,
a good point
that's
spot.
what we ran it with before, but like things were over in like 4 or 5 rounds. So we were like, maybe we need to extend it out. I said 200 is way too much, but maybe 150 would be good. So yeah, I think 100 is probably a good.
Yeah, with a caveat that you can adjust, just like anything, the DM can adjust on the fly.
Absolutely.
If they need to.
Yeah, like if you were running an entire session, then yeah, maybe 200 points.
Yeah.
Throw in a whole bunch of extra obstacles and crazy shit. So.
Yeah, my only suggestion would be, if you do hit an obstacle, that should affect your speed. So if you say 20 and you hit an obstacle, you should drop speed, because otherwise it just makes sense to just say full speed every round.
Sure.
And even if your vehicle takes damage, because Crasher and Scorcher were in the lead the whole time, so it was only when their vehicles, and they intentionally blew up their vehicle.
Yeah, because the thing is, with the speed, like rolling with disadvantage, I'm already unlikely to succeed anyway, and you can only get so much disadvantage, so it's like just double down and like keep going faster and do the crazy thing, and actually it was like pretty effective, weirdly.
You could almost build in a mechanic for if you hold max speed for X number of rounds, that it has a negative. You have to make some kind of saving throw on the vehicle, or similar to an exhaustion effect, but it's overheating.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even having like a double, something that would be like disadvantaged twice, be like if you don't spend X amount on caution, it's like an automatic like burnout, some sort of reduction to your speed or something.
Yeah.
Could make sense.
But
Yeah, those are
overall,
fantastic
incredible.
games.
And
That was great. That was so much fun.
Shout out to Karen for the
Yes.
graphics.
Thank you again,
Yeah.
Karen. That was a huge
Yeah, that was
help.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
it was
That
awesome.
was a great visual representation of.
Yeah,
Yeah, there was no question. We could clearly see what was going on.
Yeah, I had the thought that would be something helpful, but I couldn't quite wrap my head around how to do it with OBS and get it to work and stuff. So she said, "Hey, if you need help, like I'll set it up, and then you just figure out how to access it." And it worked beautifully. So I'm very, very.
It was almost like
great.
watching those. What are those games where you shoot the water gun, but you see the.
Yeah.
Yes, at the
Okay.
amusement park.
Carnival game.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, everybody, thank you very, very much for playing this crazy, wild session of this game. I know it's definitely a diversion from our norm. We usually hit the roleplay really, really hard, and we don't typically roll a lot of dice. So
This time we did both.
yeah, this was a bit of a departure. So I imagine next time we will get back more to kind of our normal speed. But it was a lot of fun to do this, so thank you very much for indulging me. Thank you everyone who has watched this evening for tuning in. Yeah, I can't think of much else. So until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.